I didn't think a locker room could scare me more than a dark parking lot until the first week of January, when the gym was packed with New Year's resolution newbies, and I realized the loudest place in the building was also the easiest place to hide something. I'd joined a 24-hour chain because it was close, cheap, and the women's locker room felt like the one space that should be safe by default. Keypad entry cameras in the hallway, staff at the front desk. That night, heavy rain slammed the windows and thunder rolled so low it made the floor feel hollow. The lobby was crowded, damp coats and fresh faces, people staring at machines like they were studying for a test. I checked in on my phone, and the app flashed, "Welcome back, Claire." I hated that it used my name, but I ignored it. In the women's locker room, every bench was taken. Hair dryers roared. Locker doors clanged. I picked a locker in the middle, changed fast, shoved my work clothes inside and turned around. Then I saw a phone propped on the bench against a water bottle camera, angled low under the lockers. At first I assumed someone was filming a workout clip, but the phone wasn't pointed at mirrors or the open room. It was aimed at the gaps beneath lockers, at ankles, towels, the half-second moments when people change and think the bench blocks the view. The screen was black, no selfie preview, just a tiny red dot, recording. My stomach dropped. I looked around for the owner. Nobody hovered near it. Everyone was busy being normal. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't want fingerprints on evidence. I backed away and walked straight to the front desk, heart pounding louder than the music. The front desk staff, young guy headset bored, blinked when I told him, "There's a phone recording in the women's locker room. It's pointed under the lockers." He started with policy words. "We don't allow filming." Then he admitted the problem. "I can't go in there. We'd need a female staff member." "Do you have one?" I asked. He shook his head. Thunder cracked again, and I felt this sharp, ridiculous anger that the weather sounded more serious than he did. "Call your manager and call the police," I said. He hesitated, like I'd asked him to clean up a spill he didn't make. He finally picked up the phone. I didn't trust him to move fast, so I went back toward the locker room myself. Staying in the hallway where the cameras were, a female employee appeared from the office ponytail, tired eyes like someone had dragged her out of a back room. "I'm Maria." "Show me," she said. She typed a code and opened the locker room door. The noise hit us again. The bench was there. The water bottle mark was there. But the phone was gone. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. Maria looked at me like she wanted to believe me, but didn't want to be wrong. I pointed at the damp outline on the bench, where the phone had been still darker than the surrounding plastic. "It was right there," I said. "Someone moved it." Maria's expression tightened. She scanned the room, eyes sharper now, and I did too. Faces, hands, bags. Nobody looked guilty, because guilty doesn't always look like anything. Then a locker door clicked near the back and a man in a hoodie stepped into view, walking out of the women's locker area, like he belonged there, like he'd taken a wrong turn and didn't care. Maria snapped. "Sir, this is the women's locker room." The man didn't panic. He lifted his hands slightly palms out and smiled politely. "Wrong door," he said calm, and walked past us without hurrying. As he passed, his shoulder brushed, mine light, controlled, too deliberate to be an accident in a room with space. He didn't look at my face. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed. A photo message from an unknown number appeared on my lock screen before I even unlocked it. It was a low-angle shot, beneath lockers, ankles, shoes, the edge of a towel blurred, but unmistakably inside the women's locker room. In the corner, a timestamp. Under it, "You were right to notice." I felt sick. I shoved the screen toward Maria. Her face drained of color. She stepped into the hallway and called the front desk in a voice that had lost all boredom. "Lock the doors. Now," she said. Inside the locker room, chatter shifted into nervous questions. Someone laughed, like fear was funny. Someone asked what was happening. Maria didn't explain. She just stood in the doorway, like a barrier. I grabbed my things and left, without working out, without showering, without caring that my hair was still damp from rain. In the lobby, the front desk guy mouthed, "Police are coming," like that made everything rewind. Outside, under the awning, rain hammered the sidewalk, and thunder kept rolling, and people walked past me with gym bags and smiles, unaware they'd just shared a building with someone who treated a locker room like content. Then my phone buzzed again. Not a call, not a text. I could trace just another message from that unknown number. Calm and pleased. You didn't touch the phone. Good. That means you'll come back to look again. I deleted the gym app, right there, in the rain hands, shaking. And for the rest of the night, every time thunder hit, all I could picture was that red recording dot in a room full of noise, and how easy it was for it to disappear the moment someone finally paid attention. The police did show up, but not like in movies. 2 officers walked in while the lobby playlist kept chirping about motivation, and the front desk guy looked relieved, like adults had arrived to label the problem. I explained the angle of the phone, the red dot, and the man in the hoodie. One officer asked if I'd touched the device. I said no. He nodded and asked if I could identify the man. I described the hoodie, average, build, calm, smile, and the words sounded useless the moment I said them. Maria confirmed she'd seen him exit. The manager blamed the storm for the camera feed, stuttering when they pulled it up, frames skipping forward like missing seconds. They said they'd request the full footage from corporate and call me. As I stepped outside into the rain, my phone lit with a banner that looked like it came from the gym. Locker room reminder, please do not film. Underneath, in smaller text that didn't match the app's style, you picked locker 214. You always pick 214 when it's busy. My stomach turned because I had picked locker 214 and I hadn't told anyone. At Doi Tree, another message arrived. From the unknown number, I saved the best clip for last, followed by a link I didn't click. I stared at it until my screen dimmed, imagining what best meant. The next day, the gym emailed a bland apology about an incident and promised to review policies. No suspect, no footage, just rules. When I went in to cancel, the January crowd had already replaced yesterday's fear with fresh enthusiasm. I signed the form left, without looking at the women's locker room door, and my phone buzzed. One last time, calm and pleased. See you next January. It's the best month for new people who don't know what to watch for yet. That night, every time thunder hit, it sounded like a locker door slamming. I kept replaying the calm way the man said wrong door, like he'd practiced sounding harmless. I washed my hands twice, even though I hadn't touched the phone like I could scrub off the fact that it existed. In the quiet between storms, my own apartment felt like another locker room. Too many corners, too many places for a lens to hide, and I realized the real damage wasn't what he recorded. It was what he taught me to notice. I learned that 24-hour gym doesn't mean safe. It just means open. And at 3:00 a.m. in January, those two words are not the same thing. I went late because my schedule was racked, and the only time my brain stopped buzzing was when I lifted something heavy. Outside rain hammered the parking lot, and thunder rolled behind the building like something huge being dragged across the sky. When I pulled in, there were only 3 cars. One sat far off by the dumpster with its lights out like it had parked there to be unnoticed. I chose a spot under a street lamp and hurried inside. No staff at the desk. No crowd. Just fluorescent hum and the smell of disinfectant. I scanned in, and the turnstile clicked open, with a cheerful beat that felt wrong in the silence. On the main floor, most machines were dark. At the far end, a man stood at a cable station. That should have been normal. What wasn't normal was the way he used it. No real weight, moving, no sweat, just slow pulls that looked like rehearsal, and long pauses where he watched the mirrors, as if the mirrors were the point. I picked a treadmill near the front where the cameras pointed and started walking headphones in but low. 10 minutes passed. The man never progressed, never left, never acted tired. Then he stopped and just stood facing the mirrors, head tilted slightly like he was listening for the building. Thunder cracked. The lights flickered once and my treadmill screen reset to 0. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen alone in the 24-hour gym at 3 a.m. 0300. Location: the brightest room. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It came back. An unknown number texted, "Don't look straight at him." Another, "He likes mirrors." My throat went dry. I watched him through reflections instead of turning my head. He drifted toward the free weights, choosing a path that kept him in chrome and glass so he could watch without appearing to stare. I moved to a squat rack, closer to the front, back to the wall, trying to look busy instead of afraid. Between reps I heard a soft click behind the front desk like a back door closing. Then the overhead music stopped completely. The gym became a box of rain and fluorescent buzz. In the sudden quiet, I heard the man exhale, slowly satisfied, like silence was what he'd been waiting for. When the music died, I noticed the security monitor behind the desk was dark, like it had no signal. A handwritten sign sat on the counter. "Be right back." I leaned over the desk and listened for movement in the back office. Nothing. Behind me, a weight plate clinked softly. In the mirror, I saw the man had moved closer without me noticing. He wasn't lifting. He was relocating. "Need a spot," he called voice, friendly enough to pass. "No," I said. He nodded, then took a step closer anyway. My phone buzzed. Don't give him the story. I grabbed my bottle and moved toward the locker hallway, thinking a second door would buy me time. I ducked into the women's restroom and locked myself in a stall to try 911 again. Ring, quiet, breath, Happy New Year. Drop. The restroom door opened slowly. His voice came from the sink area, calm. "You okay in there?" I stayed silent until I heard the door close again. When I stepped back onto the floor, he was positioned between me and the front doors, not blocking like a movie villain, just waiting there with a small, patient smile, as if he had all night to stand in the right place. I tried to call 911 without making it obvious. The call rang once, then went quiet like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. It wasn't even New Year's Eve anymore, but the whisper still found me. My phone buzzed. No one answers at 3 a.m. in a storm. Another, "You came here because you thought you'd be alone." I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the exit, refusing to run. I reached for the front door handle. It didn't move. An internal deadbolt had slid into place, the kind some gyms use overnight when staff are present. No staff were present. I tried the second door. Same. Behind me, his shoes squeaked once closer. "They lock it during storms," he said casually, like he was helpful. I didn't turn around. "There's supposed to be someone here," I said, voice shaking. He chuckled softly. "There was," he replied. The sentence landed like a weight. I backed away from the doors and headed for the pool corridor because I knew there was an emergency exit at the end. The air back there smelled like chlorine and damp tile. I pushed the metal exit bar. It didn't give. Another lock held it shut. 2 exits, 2 locks. My stomach dropped. I turned and saw him in the reflection of the pool window, standing behind me at a distance that was no longer polite. He wasn't rushing. He didn't have to. "You don't have to leave," he said softly. "You can finish your workout." My phone lit with a banner that looked like it came from the gym. Workout tip. Breathe through the burn. Then underneath in smaller text that didn't match the app's font, "I can hear you breathing." I ran back to the main floor because being trapped in that corridor felt like being trapped in a throat. He followed calm, letting my panic make the noise. I reached the front desk and slammed my hand under the counter until my fingers hit a button. For a beat, nothing happened. Then an alarm blared, shrill and ugly, and the overhead lights surged brighter. The front doors clicked as the internal bolt released with a metallic snap. He stopped walking. His smile didn't disappear. It just got smaller, like a private joke. "Good," he said, almost approving. "You found it." I shoved the door open and ran into the rain, slipping once heart hammering. I sprinted to my car under the street lamp and locked the doors. Through the windshield, I saw him standing just inside the lobby, not stepping into the storm, watching me through glass like a person watching a screen. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. "Next time come at 330. The gym is quieter then. And as thunder rolled again, I realized the most terrifying part wasn't that he'd been there. It was that he'd known exactly when the building would feel empty enough for me to believe I was alone. In the parking lot, the car by the dumpster finally turned its headlights on as I pulled out, and I felt that familiar drop in my stomach when it rolled after me without rushing. I took 3 unnecessary turns through side streets slick with rain, watching it in my mirrors until it finally kept going straight, as if it only needed to prove it could. At home, my phone lit up with a workout summary notification from the gym app, even though I'd barely done anything. Time in building 47 minutes. Then beneath the normal stats, a line that didn't match the app's font. Good job coming when no one was there to interrupt us. I reported everything in the morning. The gym told me the doors sometimes lock automatically during severe weather, and the cameras sometimes reboot. They said they couldn't confirm anyone tampered with anything. That's the problem with places that run on corporate scripts. They can explain anything away as a glitch. I cancelled my membership that same day, but the storm kept returning in my head, and every time thunder hit after midnight, I heard his voice again, soft, approving like the gym had taught him my schedule and taught me to doubt my instincts at the same time. I thought the worst part of leg day was walking to your car with your knees shaking. But the first week of January taught me the real danger is how predictable you become when you're exhausted and proud of yourself at the same time. The gym was still in full resolution mode, crowded even late, and the heavy rain outside turned the front doors into a sheet of grey noise while thunder rolled in slow waves behind the building. I finished my last set, wiped down the machine, and tried to ignore the familiar sensation that someone had been watching me for longer than a normal glance. I told myself I was being paranoid because January makes everyone look around more, comparing bodies, copying routines, pretending they know what they're doing. Then my phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. HE followed me home after leg day 0112A. Location. Your route home. The only button was accept pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It came back. An unknown number texted immediately. Don't leave yet. Another message followed. He waits for the limb. My mouth went dry. I stood near the stretching mats and watched the mirrors without looking like I was watching. Near the cable machines, a man in a dark cap and hoodie wasn't lifting anything heavy, wasn't sweating, wasn't progressing through sets. He was just positioned where he could see the exit and the locker hallway, hands in his pockets, like he was killing time. When a group walked between us, his eyes didn't follow them. They stayed on me. I did the normal little safety rituals people do when they're trying to convince themselves they're fine. Refill my bottle, wipe my hands, check the time, pretend to read a notification. The front desk was unattended, again, just the same be right back sign, and a dark security monitor that made the place feel less like a gym and more like an empty store that happened to have treadmills. Thunder cracked hard enough to make the lights flicker, and the man didn't flinch. He just smiled slightly, like he enjoyed the building, reacting more than the people inside it. I waited 10 minutes. He waited too. My phone buzzed. He's patient. Another message. You're the one on a timer. I finally decided I'd rather be in my car than trapped inside with him and no staff. I walked toward the exit with my keys threaded between my fingers and my gym bag clutched tight, trying to look normal. The man moved at the same time, not rushing, just drifting, keeping the same distance, like a shadow that didn't want to look like a shadow. As I pushed through the glass doors, rain hit my face cold and sharp. The parking lot smelled like wet asphalt and exhaust. Street lamps turned the rainfall into bright strings. I headed straight to my car, under a light, telling myself. The rule was simple. Get in, lock the doors, leave. My headlights swept the roads, and for 1 second I thought I was alone out there. Then I saw him between cars, half hidden by a pillar, close enough that I could make out the calm set of his shoulders. He wasn't running. He didn't need to. He lifted one hand in a small wave, like we were neighbors, leaving the same place. I got in, locked my doors, and sat there for a breath that felt too loud. My phone buzzed. Don't look back too long. Another message. He likes mirrors. I pulled out, slowly, forcing myself not to speed, because speed is panic, and panic makes mistakes. At the first stop sign, I checked my rearview mirror. A dark sedan rolled up behind me, and stopped one car length back, lights low. Norma. I turned right. The sedan turned right. I turned left. It turned left. Rain smeared the world into halos, but those headlights stayed in the same place in my mirror like they were attached to my bumper. I tried calling 911 because even if it felt dramatic, I needed a voice outside my head. The call rang once, then went quiet like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold because I wasn't even thinking about New Year's anymore. My phone buzzed immediately. They don't answer in a storm. Another message followed. Drive, like you're going home. I didn't go home. I turned toward a bright gas station on a main road, the kind with cameras and people awake behind glass. The sedan followed without hesitation and parked 2 spaces away under the canopy angled so the driver could see me without being obvious. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped my keys. I went inside anyway because the car suddenly felt like a box. The bell above the door chimed. The cashier looked up bored, then his eyes flicked past me to the sedan and sharpened slightly. I walked straight to the counter and said low, "That car followed me from my gym." The cashier's expression shifted into reluctant responsibility. "You know him?" he asked. "No," I said. "I don't." The cashier glanced down at something under the counter but didn't press it yet, like he was waiting to see how bad it really was. The man came in a moment later, rain dripping off his sleeves, calm, as if he'd only stepped in for a snack. He didn't look rushed. He didn't look angry. He looked prepared. He walked one slow aisle, then stopped, near the drinks, and spoke to me without raising his voice. "You forgot your towel," he said. I stared, because I hadn't forgotten anything. He lifted his hand slightly, and my stomach dropped when I saw my gym towel mine, the one with the frayed corner folded neatly over his fingers like a prop. My blood went cold because that meant he'd been close enough to take it without me noticing. The cashier straightened up behind the counter and said louder, "Can I help you?" The man smiled at him with perfect politeness. "Just making sure she's okay," he said, like he was the helpful one and I was the problem. The cashier's eyes narrowed. "She said she doesn't know you," he replied. The man's smile got smaller, but it didn't disappear. He looked back at me. "You work hard," he said softly. "Leg day is a lot." My phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number. It was a blurry shot of me on the leg press earlier, taken from an angle that could only be from behind a machine, and beneath it one line. "You look strong when you can't run." I swallowed hard and forced my voice out. "Leave me alone," I said. The words sounded too small in my own ears. The cashier finally pressed the button under the counter. A loud chime sounded from the back room, and a second employee appeared, bigger and older eyes scanning. The man took one look at him, then at the cashier, and made a tiny nod like he respected the room now. He set my towel down on a shelf, with careful precision, like he cared about leaving no evidence on it, and walked back out into the rain. The sedan pulled away a minute later, disappearing into the wet glare of the road. I stayed inside the gas station for 20 minutes, pretending to scroll, listening to thunder and the cashier's radio, trying to convince my body it was over. When I finally drove home, I took a long route, looping through lit streets and making unnecessary turns. The sedan didn't appear behind me, and relief started to creep in, like warmth returning to fingers. Then I pulled into my apartment complex and saw the dark sedan parked across the lot, headlights off, tucked into a spot that faced the entrance like a seat in a theater. I didn't go straight to my building. I drove back out, circled once, and returned. The sedan was still there, same angle like it hadn't needed to chase, because it already knew. I parked under a light, grabbed my keys and walked fast, refusing to look at the sedan more than a glance. As I reached my car door, I noticed something white tucked under my windshield wiper. I froze. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. It was a gym receipt, printed with the exact time I checked out, and on the back in neat block letters one sentence, "Great. Session. Same time tomorrow." My throat tightened. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. "You always think the drive ends it. It's just the part where you show me where you live." In the morning, I went back to the gym only long enough to cancel. The manager offered the same corporate comfort words about reviewing footage and escalating concerns, but when I asked if a dark sedan had been in the lot on camera, she hesitated just long enough to tell me she already knew the answer. Didn't want to say it out loud. I walked out in daylight rain, still falling, thunder still rolling in the distance, and realized the real horror wasn't that he followed me once. It was how easily a routine becomes a map, and how quickly the new year turns self-improvement into a predictable schedule for someone who doesn't need a membership to track you. I used to think the word spotter meant safety until January, but the gym taught me some people volunteer to help, because it's the only socially acceptable way to touch you without asking. The rain was coming down hard that night, thunder shaking the windows in slow pulses, and the gym was packed with New Year's resolution newbies doing everything slightly wrong and pretending it was fine. I was at a bench press station with a weight I could handle, but didn't want to fail on because the room was crowded, and the idea of getting pinned under the bar in front of strangers felt humiliating. I did my first set clean. I racked the bar, sat up and reached for my phone to time my rest. A man appeared beside me like he'd been waiting for the pause. Late 20s, broad shoulders, sleeveless hoodie, the kind of guy who looks like he lives at the gym and knows the staff by first name. "Want a spot?" he asked, smiling like he was offering a seat on the subway. "I'm good," I said. He laughed softly, as if my answer was cute. "It's not a big deal," he replied, already stepping closer. Before I could say anything else, he positioned himself behind the bench, hands hovering near the bar. That should have been fine. Except his hands didn't hover near the bar. They hovered near me. When I lay back and set my grip, I felt his fingers brush my wrists as if he needed to check them. Then I felt a palm press lightly on my shoulder. Not supportive, not corrective, just present. My skin crawled. I sat up again. "I said I'm good," I repeated firmly. His smile stayed, but his eyes tightened. "Relax," he said. "I'm just helping." My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen the spotter, who got too close. 0844 p.m. Location right behind you. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "He picked you because you said I'm good." Another message followed. "He doesn't like no when it sounds polite." I stood up and moved one station over, pretending I'd decided to switch exercises. He followed like it was normal to follow. "You're going to hurt yourself," he said, voice warm, as if he cared. I didn't answer. I started setting up dumbbells, keeping my eyes on the weights, and my body angled so he couldn't stand directly behind me again. He leaned in anyway too close and spoke near my ear, like we were sharing a secret. "You should smile more," he said. "You'd look friendlier." My stomach dropped, because it was the kind of sentence that turns you into a public object. I finally looked straight at him and said clear, "Leave me alone." The words made my throat burn. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned smaller and sharper. "Well," he said, quietly offended, "I'm literally trying to help you." He stepped back, palms up, performing innocence for anyone watching. And that's the trick. If you react strongly, you look unstable, and if you react softly, you look available. I grabbed my water bottle and walked toward the front desk, heart hammering. The desk was staffed this time by a young employee with a headset and the same tired eyes as everyone else working January nights. "Can I help you?" he asked, already bored. I lowered my voice. "There's a guy bothering me," I said. "He won't leave me alone." The employee glanced past me toward the weight floor. "Which guy?" he asked, like I was pointing to a single raindrop in a storm. I turned slightly. The man was still there now, spotting another woman standing too close, smiling too much, hands hovering where hands shouldn't need to hover. The employee shrugged. "He's here all the time," he said. "He's pretty friendly." Friendly. I felt something hot rise in my chest. "I don't want friendly," I said. "I want him away from me." The employee's face shifted into a look that meant policy, not protection. "If he touches you, we can say something he offered, like the line had to be crossed on camera to count." Thunder rolled, and for a moment the lights flickered, and I pictured the same red recording dot from the locker room story, the same way things disappear when you finally point at them. I didn't argue. I walked back onto the floor, because sometimes you learn there's no authority coming to save you in a brightly lit building full of people. I chose a treadmill near the cameras and started walking, telling myself, movement creates distance. After 2 minutes I saw him in the mirror wall, not running, not lifting, just drifting. He walked behind the treadmill row, slowly scanning faces like he was browsing. When he reached my treadmill, he didn't stop directly beside it. He stopped one machine behind me, close enough that I could see him in the mirror, without turning my head close enough that I could feel the pressure of being watched. He pretended to stretch, but his eyes stayed on me. My phone buzzed. He likes it better when you're trapped by motion. Another message: treadmills are perfect. You can't suddenly turn around. I slowed my pace and stepped off, pretending I was tired. He stepped forward. "See," he said softly, "you were overdoing it." I told you. The confidence in his voice made my skin crawl, like he was claiming credit for my body. I walked toward the locker hallway because it was a controlled entry, because there were women there, because surely he wouldn't follow me into that space again after what happened with the hidden camera story. He followed anyway, stopping just short of the keypad door, as if he understood the boundary enough to use it as a threat. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, still polite, still calm in the tone people use when they want you to doubt your own memory. "I'm just being nice." My phone buzzed, and a photo message appeared from the unknown number, a close-up shot of my hands on the bench press bar. Earlier my rings visible, my nail color visible, framed like a detail someone saved on purpose. Under it, "He noticed what you wear when you lift." My stomach dropped. I looked back at him. "Stop," I said again, louder. 2 people glanced over and then looked away immediately, the way gym people do when they sense conflict because they don't want to be involved. His smile hardened. "You know," he said quietly, "girls who come in here in January always think they own the place." The words were soft, but the intent was sharp. "You are temporary. You are new. You are replaceable." Thunder cracked again, and for a second the building's music cut out, and in that brief quiet I heard him breathe like he was enjoying the moment more than the workout. I did the only thing that felt like control. I walked straight into the locker hallway, waited for another woman to approach, and asked her, "Can you walk with me?" She looked confused, then saw my face, and nodded without questions. We moved together 2 bodies instead of 1, and I felt the difference immediately. His confidence wavered, because witnesses changed the math. He stayed outside the keypad door, leaning on the wall like he was harmless, like he was waiting for a friend. My phone buzzed. "He hates when you share the fear." Another message: "It makes it real." I changed quickly and left the locker room with my hood up, not because I thought it hid me, but because I wanted one small barrier between my face and his attention. In the lobby, the front desk employee called out, "Have a good night," like nothing had happened. As I pushed through the glass doors into the rain, I glanced back once, and there he was near the water fountain, smiling at me through reflections, making no move to chase, because the worst ones don't chase. They let you leave, knowing you'll remember them more than they remember you. When I got to my car, there was a folded paper tucked under my driver's side wiper. My stomach dropped in the same familiar way it had the night I was followed home. I opened it with shaking fingers. It wasn't a threat written in anger. It was worse. It was neat, cheerful handwriting on a gym. Guest pass slip. "Next time, trust your spotter. I can keep you safe." My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. He doesn't want your number. He wants you to feel like he's part of your routine. The next day, I asked the manager if they could ban him. She asked if I had proof he did anything. I showed her the note. She frowned, like it was inconvenient. She said notes could be misunderstood. Misunderstood. I cancelled my membership anyway, and as I walked out into the heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, I realized the most terrifying part wasn't the touch itself. It was the system that required a bruise before it would believe you, and the way a stranger could hide behind the word help, while he slowly tried to teach me that my no didn't count unless someone else decided it did. I used to think the parking lot was the safest part of leaving the gym because it meant I was almost done. But January taught me that the walk to your car is the moment predators choose because your brain is already celebrating survival. The rain was relentless that night. Thick sheets under the street lamps, and thunder kept rolling like a warning the city refused to take seriously. The gym was still crowded inside, warm and noisy, but the lot outside looked half empty. Dark space broken by puddles that reflected headlights like broken mirrors. I finished my workout around 9:03. 6 changed quickly and told myself I was being dramatic for scanning the locker room hallway before I left. I'd been doing that a lot lately. That's what fear does. It turns ordinary routines into security checks. When I stepped into the lobby, the front desk employee gave me the same chirpy goodbye he gave everyone, and I felt that familiar frustration that the building was designed to feel safe without actually being responsible for it. As I pushed through the doors, cold rain slapped my face and the air smelled like wet asphalt and cheap pine air freshener from someone's idling car. I walked fast, gym bag tight against my side keys, threaded between my fingers. My car was parked under a light near the entrance. I could see it clearly. That should have helped. It didn't, because halfway there, I noticed a man standing at the far edge of the lot near the line of shrubs just outside the brightest circle of light, as if he'd chosen the exact border where he could be seen but not examined. He wasn't under an umbrella. He wasn't walking toward a car. He was simply standing there, shoulders relaxed, head turned toward the entrance watching people leave. When a couple walked out, he didn't move. When 2 guys left laughing, he didn't move. When I stepped into the rain, his head shifted slightly, and I felt it in my bones like a finger pressing a button. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. He waited by my car in the parking lot 0940 p.m. Location where your door opens. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately, "Don't fumble your keys." Another message followed. "He's counting your hands." My throat went dry. I kept walking, pretending I hadn't noticed him, because acknowledging someone like that can turn their imagination into permission. I reached my car and forced my hands to behave. Key in, click door, open, slide in, lock. Simple. My fingers shook. Anyway, I hit the unlock button once. Nothing happened. I hit it again. Still nothing. The fob light blinked weakly. Dead battery. Of course. My stomach dropped. I glanced toward the shrubs. The man was closer now, not rushing, just drifting through the rain with the calmness of someone who knows time is on his side. I tried the key manually, but the lock was stiff from cold and my hands were wet and shaking. Behind me, his footsteps weren't loud. They were careful. The soft splash of shoes in shallow water, each step controlled. "You okay?" he called, voice neutral, the exact tone that makes other people assume you're friends. I didn't answer. I forced the key into the lock and turned hard. The mechanism finally gave with a stubborn click. I yanked the door open and slid inside, slamming it. And the moment the door shut, I heard him knock lightly on the glass. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps, polite, like he was requesting entry to a business meeting. I hit the lock button on the door and pressed my back against the seat, heart hammering. Rain blurred his face, but I saw his smile clearly enough to hate it. He leaned toward the window close, but not pressing, and spoke softly, as if we were sharing a secret. "You dropped something," he said. I stared. I hadn't. He pointed down toward the ground, near my tires. I didn't look. "I'm fine," I forced out, voice shaking. He smiled wider, pleased that he'd gotten a response. "You sure?" he asked. "It's dangerous out here." My phone buzzed. He loves to sound like the protector. Another message. "Don't roll the window down." I didn't. I started the car with shaking hands, and the engine struggled for half a second before catching. The man stepped back slowly, not startled, not angry, as if he expected me to start it. I put the car in reverse and backed out fast tires, hissing on wet pavement. In my mirror, I saw him standing under the street lamp, now rain pouring off his hood, watching my taillights like he was memorizing them. I pulled out of the lot and tried to breathe. At the first light, my phone buzzed again. A photo message from the unknown number appeared. It was a picture of my car from behind, taken close enough that my license plate was perfectly readable despite the rain. Under it, one line, nice plate. Easy to remember. My stomach dropped. I tried calling 911, refusing to be trained into silence. Ring. Quiet. Breath. Happy New Year. Drop. My hands shook so badly I nearly swerved. My phone buzzed immediately. No one answers fast enough. Another message. Drive home. I didn't. I drove to a brightly lit grocery store parking lot with cameras, the kind that stays open late. I parked under a camera pole and sat there scanning the entrance road. 5 minutes passed. Then a car rolled in slowly and parked 2 rows away, angled toward me. Headlights off. The same calm patience. I couldn't see the driver's face, but I felt the certainty anyway. I got out and walked straight into the store, because the car was not protection. It was a trap with windows. Inside, the fluorescent lights felt harsh and safe at the same time. I went to customer service and said low, "Someone is following me." The employee looked up tired, then looked at my face and softened into real concern. "Do you want us to call police?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and the word came out like relief. She picked up the phone. The line rang. Someone answered. Her shoulders relaxed. I almost cried. Then her expression changed, confused and pale as she listened. "Hello," she said again. Silence. Breath. "Happy New Year." The line dropped. The employee stared at the receiver like it had insulted her. My skin went cold. The unknown number texted immediately. "You see, it's always the same." Another message followed. "The only person who stays consistent is me." I backed away from the counter, nauseous. Outside, through the glass doors, the parked car's headlights flicked on once, then off like a blink. I waited inside the grocery store for 40 minutes, wandering aisles, pretending to read labels, listening to thunder roll in carts, squeak. Finally, the car pulled away. I didn't celebrate. I knew better than to think gone meant done. When I drove home, I stayed on main roads, avoided quiet turns, and parked under my building's brightest light. I grabbed my bag and hurried to the entrance, fingers trembling on my key fob. As I pulled the lobby door open, something white on the ground caught my eye. A small folded note placed exactly on the welcome mat, like a gift. My name was printed neatly on the outside. I didn't pick it up with my bare hands. I used a tissue from my pocket like I'd learned to treat paper as evidence. Inside, one sentence in neat block letters. "You locked your car fast this time. Good job. You're learning." My throat tightened. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. "Next time I'll stand closer to the light so you can't pretend you didn't see me." I went upstairs, shaking, locked my door and sat on the floor with my back against it, listening to rain and thunder and the building's quiet creaks, trying to convince myself that a parking lot encounter ends when you drive away. But the note proved the truth. The encounter ends when the person who started it decides it's over, and he hadn't decided yet. I didn't realize how exposed you are in a gym until I felt the click of a camera that wasn't mine, because there's a special kind of fear that comes from knowing someone can freeze your body into an image without your permission. It was a January evening, still early enough that the resolution crowd filled every rack and machine, and the rain outside made the windows look like they were sweating. Thunder rolled low and distant, like the sky was lifting heavy weights too. I was doing squats, because I'd promised myself I would stop skipping leg day, and I'd chosen a spot near the mirror wall where I could check form and where other people were close enough that I didn't feel alone. That's what I wanted. Not privacy, just normal. I sat up under the bar, braced, lowered, and stood the familiar burn in my legs. On my third rep, I noticed a man a few feet away holding his phone up like he was texting, but the angle was wrong. His screen was pointed at me, not his face. He wasn't moving his thumbs. He was still too still for texting, and his eyes weren't on the phone. They were on me, watching me through the device. I finished the rep and racked the bar, hard metal, clanging louder than necessary. I turned slightly, and saw him raise the phone a fraction higher, like he was adjusting the shot. Then I heard its soft, unmistakable camera shutter sound. My stomach dropped. I stepped away from the rack and stared at him. "Are you taking pictures of me?" I asked, louder than I meant to. A few heads turned and then turned away immediately, the Jim's favorite reflex. The man smiled like I'd accused him of stealing a pen. "No," he said, too quickly. "I'm just checking my phone." He tilted the phone toward the mirror, as if that explained the angle, but the phone's camera lens was still pointed directly at me, and he didn't move it until after I spoke. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The guy who took photos of me squatting 0726 p.m. Location: the mirror wall. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "He won't admit it." Another message followed. "Ask him to delete them." My hands shook, but anger held me upright. "Delete them," I said. "Right now." His smile thinned. "Relax," he said. "You're overreacting." Overreacting. The word made my skin crawl. I stepped closer, keeping distance, but refusing to let him turn away. "Show me your gallery," I said. He laughed softly, like it was cute that I thought I had authority. "No," he said, and started to walk. I followed for 2 steps. He pivoted, and his voice dropped, still calm but edged. "Don't make a scene," he said quietly. "Everyone's filming in here." I looked around. People were filming themselves, yes. Tripods, selfies, form checks. But none of those cameras were aimed at strangers in a squat rack. None of those people flinched when confronted. He did. I marched straight to the front desk, heart hammering. The employee there was New Young, overwhelmed by the January crowd. "Can I help you?" he asked, with that corporate smile that collapses under real problems. "A guy is taking pictures of me," I said, loud enough that it couldn't be filed into minor complaint. The employee blinked, glanced toward the floor, and asked the worst question. "Do you know who like? I should be responsible for identifying my own harasser." I pointed. The guy with the phone had already moved to the water fountain area, blending in like a person who knew where cameras were and where they weren't. "Him," I said. The employee hesitated. "We have rules," he started. I cut him off. "I don't want rules. I want him to delete the photos and leave." The employee's eyes darted to a manager's office door, then back to me. "I'll get my supervisor," he said, and disappeared. Seconds felt like hours. The guy with the phone watched me from across the floor, drinking water, slowly calm again now that the burden of action was on staff. My phone buzzed. He's not worried. Another message. He does this often. A woman next to me whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded, grateful for one human moment that didn't feel like policy. The supervisor finally came out. Older, tired, trying to look in control. I explained quickly the angle, the shutter sound, the refusal to show gallery. The supervisor nodded like he'd heard versions of this story and had learned to keep his face neutral. He walked toward the guy with the phone. The guy smiled immediately, warm and innocent. They spoke briefly. The supervisor returned with that careful expression people wear when they don't want to promise anything. "He says he was filming himself," the supervisor said. "He agreed to delete anything with you in it." "Did he?" I asked. The supervisor hesitated. "He showed me his recent photos," he said. "There wasn't anything obvious." Obvious. My stomach dropped, because not obvious is the whole point of taking photos of strangers. You frame it so it can be denied. I demanded, "Let me see him delete them." The supervisor sighed, annoyed now like I was the problem. "Ma'am, we can't force someone to unlock their phone in front of you," he said, and the sentence landed like a door shutting. I felt heat rush to my face. "Then ban him," I said. "If you can't prove it, at least protect me." The supervisor's expression flattened. "We need policy violations we can document," he replied. Document. Proof. Evidence. Meanwhile, my body had been turned into content. The guy with the phone walked past us a minute later, on his way out, and as he passed, he murmured softly, almost friendly, "You should be flattered." The casualness made me want to scream. My phone buzzed immediately with a photo message from the unknown number. It was a close-up of my knees at the bottom of a squat, framed like it was about form, but my face wasn't visible, which meant it could be denied. Under it, one line C. Now he can say, "It's not you." My stomach turned. I left the gym without finishing my workout, legs still trembling from squats and rage. Outside, rain hammered the sidewalk, and thunder rolled, and in the car I sat shaking, trying to decide if I should call police, or if they'd ask the same questions the gym did. I tried anyway. Ring. Quiet. Breath. Happy New Year. Drop. I stared at my phone like it was cursed. The unknown number texted immediately. "You can't report a photo you can't prove is you." Another message followed. "That's why he crops." That night I went through my social media, my gym app, profile photo, anything that showed my face, and I realized how much of me was already public in small ways, enough for someone to connect dots. The next morning, I got an email from an unknown address with no subject line. Inside was a single attached image, the cropped squat photo, plus a second shot taken from farther back that included my reflection in the mirror, my face blurred, but recognizable to anyone who already knew what to look for. Under the image, a message in neat block letters, nice form. Same time tomorrow. My throat tightened. I cancelled my membership that day. The manager offered me a free month to stay like fear could be compensated with discounts. I said no. As I walked out, the rain had softened into a steady hiss, thunder still rumbling far away, and my phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. Every January people bring cameras and call it motivation. It makes it easy for someone like him to hide in plain sight. I didn't realize how threatening a compliment could be until a stranger at the gym used one sentence. "You should smile," more like a leash he could pull whenever I tried to move away. It was mid-January, the resolution crowd still thick, but starting to thin at the edges, and the heavy rain outside made the windows sound like they were being sandblasted. Thunder rolled every few minutes, low enough to feel in your ribs. I came after work, hair still damp from the walk-in, hoping to disappear into routine. That's what a gym is supposed to be. Anonymous effort, no conversation required. I picked a treadmill near the front, where the hallway cameras could see the row, and I started walking headphones in, but not loud, because lately I didn't trust silence. 2 minutes in, I noticed him in the mirror wall, a man drifting behind the treadmills, like he was browsing products, not people. He wasn't on a machine. He wasn't carrying a towel. He was just moving slowly, scanning faces with the casual confidence of someone who thinks he belongs everywhere. When he reached my treadmill, he stopped directly beside it, close enough that I could smell cologne under the gym's disinfectant. "Hey," he said, smiling like we were already friends. I kept my eyes forward. "Hi," I replied, the smallest response I could give without escalating. He leaned closer, anyway. "You know," he said, in a tone meant to sound helpful, "you should smile more. You'd look prettier." My stomach dropped. I felt the familiar heat of anger and embarrassment, that awful mix that makes your body want to shrink while your brain wants to fight. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I didn't reward it. I said clear I'm working out. He chuckled softly, like my boundary was adorable. "That's what I'm saying," he replied. "You look so serious. Lighten up. It's January. New you, right?" He said it like a joke, but it landed like a claim, like he had a right to edit my face. I increased the treadmill speed, pretending to focus, hoping movement would discourage conversation. He stayed. He matched my pace by walking slowly beside the treadmill, hands in his hoodie pocket, as if we were taking a stroll together. That's when my phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. "You should smile more 0658 p.m. Location right next to your machine." The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number, texted immediately. "He does that to see if you'll obey." Another message followed. "Don't smile. Don't explain." My throat went dry. I stepped off the treadmill, abruptly grabbed my water bottle and moved toward the free weights, where other women were lifting in pairs because witnesses change everything. He followed, like I'd invited him. "Whoa, you're fast," he said, laughing, still performing friendliness. I set my bottle down and faced him. "Stop following me," I said. The words came out steadier than I felt. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned, smaller and sharper. "I am not following you," he said, and he said it loudly enough that people nearby would hear the denial. "I'm just talking. You don't have to be rude." Rude. There it was. The trick. If you reject him, you become the problem. A woman nearby glanced over and looked away. A guy at a bench press lifted his earbuds out for a second, then put them back like conflict was contagious. The man leaned in slightly and lowered his voice. "Girls like you come in here in January," he murmured, acting like you're too good for everyone. The sentence was soft, but it was meant to sting, meant to push me into defending myself. I didn't. I turned and walked toward the front desk with my heart hammering. I didn't run, because running invites pursuit. I walked like I had a destination and authority. Behind me, I heard his shoes squeak on the floor, measured, still following. The front desk was staffed by a young woman this time, hair in a tight bun, eyes tired. Relief hit me, because I needed someone to see it, not just hear it. I stepped up and said, "That man is harassing me. He won't leave me alone." The woman's face tightened, and she glanced toward him. He stopped a few feet behind me and lifted his hands slightly, palms open, smiling as if he was the one being attacked. "I was just saying hi," he said warmly. "It's New Year's. People are so sensitive." The desk employee's eyes flicked between us, calculating policy. "Sir," she said, "careful, we don't allow members to bother other members." He nodded immediately, still smiling. "Of course," he said. "I didn't mean anything." He looked at me and added louder, "Sorry if you misunderstood." Misunderstood. The word felt like mud. I said, firm, I didn't misunderstand. "I told you to stop." The employee cleared her throat. "Sir, please give her space," she repeated. He nodded again like a child being corrected gently, then stepped back 2 paces. Not leaving, just repositioning. He turned his attention to the water fountain, like he was choosing to behave, and the employee relaxed slightly, as if the problem had been solved. My phone buzzed. He knows how to pause without stopping. Another message. "Watch his hands." I went back to the floor because I didn't want to be trapped at the desk either, and I moved to a row of ellipticals near a cluster of people. For 10 minutes he stayed away, pretending to stretch, pretending to scroll on his phone, pretending he wasn't tracking my location like a game. Then he drifted closer again, not directly, just one machine at a time, like a tide. Each time I glanced up, he was a little nearer, still smiling, still performing harmlessness. Finally, he stopped at the machine beside mine and said softly, "There, that's better. You look calmer," like he was grading me. I snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a clear, controlled, "Leave me alone," and I stepped off and walked straight to the manager's office door. The manager wasn't there. A closed sign hung on the glass. Of course. Thunder roared and the lights flickered, and for a second I felt the building's hum drop into a quiet that made every breath sound amplified. In that brief quiet he whispered near my ear, "Smile," and I almost jumped out of my skin. I spun and there he was, 2 close eyes, bright with the thrill of making me react. I raised my voice. "Don't come near me." Heads turned. The gym went still for half a second, then the music resumed and everyone pretended not to hear. The desk employee hurried over, face tight. "Sir," she said, sharper, "now you need to leave." The man laughed, like it was unbelievable, for what he asked, still smiling. I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything. The employee's jaw clenched, because she knew the problem the system wants, bruises, not fear. "You were warned," she said. "Leave." He held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly like he was complying out of generosity. He walked toward the exit, hands in pockets, still calm. As he passed me, he leaned slightly and murmured so quiet only I could hear, "You'll miss me when everyone quits in February." Then he pushed through the doors into the heavy rain like it was nothing. I stood there, shaking legs weak, and the desk employee asked, "Are you okay?" And I nodded, even though I wasn't, because Okay is what you say when you don't want to become the main story in a room full of strangers. When I finally left, later I kept my eyes on the parking lot, keys ready, breath tight. My car was untouched. The rain was still falling. Thunder still rolled. It felt like it was over. Then I found a folded note tucked under my driver's side wiper, dry despite the rain, placed carefully. Inside one sentence in neat handwriting, "Smile next time. It makes it easier to take your picture." My phone buzzed, immediately calm and pleased. He doesn't want your smile. He wants proof he can ask, and you'll obey. I sat in my car, with the note on my lap, shaking, and realized the most terrifying part wasn't his words. It was how easily the gym's noise tried to swallow them, and how often people mistake silence for safety. I used to think the sauna was a luxury, a quiet reward after a workout, until I learned how terrifying a small hot room can be when someone decides you can't leave without passing them. It was late January rain, pounding the roof like fists, thunder shaking the windows in slow, heavy waves, and the gym felt slightly emptier than it had earlier in the month, the way resolution season starts to thin into regulars again. I finished a long session and headed to the women's locker room to shower, telling myself I needed something normal, something that didn't involve scanning every reflection. The sauna in the women's area was small, wood benches, dim light, a glass door you could see through from inside. People used it in short bursts. You sit, sweat, leave. Simple. That night when I walked in, there was only one other person, a woman in her late 30s, maybe hair wrapped in a towel, sitting on the top bench with her elbows on her knees, staring at the door like she was waiting for a bus. I nodded politely and sat on the lower bench far enough away to give space. At first it was quiet, just the hiss of the heater and the faint thunder rumbling beyond the walls. Then the woman spoke without turning her head. "You come here a lot," she said. The sentence sounded like a fact, not a question. My stomach tightened. "I guess," I replied, carefully. She tilted her head slightly and smiled. "New year," she said. "All the new girls come in January." The phrasing made my skin crawl, the same January goes language I'd heard from the men. I stood up to leave, suddenly uncomfortable, and that's when the door opened from the outside. A man stepped into the doorway, paused, and looked in. He wasn't supposed to be there. He stood there like he'd wandered in by mistake, except his eyes didn't carry embarrassment. They carried interest. He wore a hoodie and gym shorts, damp hair, and a smile that tried to look apologetic while his gaze moved too slowly across the room. I froze. The woman on the top bench didn't react the way a stranger should react to a man in the women's sauna. She didn't flinch. She didn't shout. She just watched him like she expected him. The man said softly, "My bad," but he didn't move away. He stayed in the doorway long enough to take in the scene. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The Sauna Stalker 0912P. Location: the hot room. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "Don't yell. The walls are thick." Another message followed. "He wants you to feel trapped." The man finally stepped back, and the door shut. But my skin didn't relax because the glass door made shut feel temporary. I grabbed my towel and moved fast toward the exit, but the woman spoke again, calm, as if she was keeping me seated with conversation. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "He's just curious." Curious. Like my discomfort was entertainment. I opened the sauna door and stepped out into the locker area, heart hammering. The hallway was quiet. I started toward the showers, thinking staff would be nearby, thinking the women's locker room was still a boundary. Then I saw him again, not inside this time, but standing, just outside the women's locker room keypad door in the hallway, leaning against the wall like he belonged there. He wasn't forcing entry. He didn't need to. His position meant anyone leaving the locker room would have to pass within a few feet of him. He looked up and smiled, like he'd been waiting for me. And in his hand he held a small gym towel, folded neatly, like a prop, to look harmless. My stomach dropped. I turned back toward the locker room, scanning for another exit. The women's locker room had one main door, one hallway, one path to the front. Suddenly the sauna felt like a warning. Small rooms teach you what trapping feels like. The woman from the sauna emerged behind me, calm, and stood too close. "Relax," she murmured. "Just walk past him." Her voice sounded almost rehearsed. My phone buzzed. "She's not helping you." Another message. They work together. My throat went dry. I walked quickly into the shower area because at least there were curtains and other women and noise. I tried to breathe, tried to wash off the sweat and the fear, but the water felt like it couldn't reach the part of me that was shaking. When I finished, I changed fast hair, still damp, and stepped back into the locker room main area. The woman was gone. The benches were quieter now. I told myself maybe I'd imagined the coordination. Maybe the man had left. I approached the keypad door slowly and peered into the hallway through the small glass panel. He was still there. Same lean, same patient calm. And now the woman was with him on the hallway side, standing half a step behind, watching the glass panel like she knew exactly where my eyes would appear. When her eyes met through the glass, she smiled. Not friendly, confirming. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I backed away and looked for staff, but the locker room had no staff, just members and mirrors. I grabbed my phone and tried calling 911 again because even if it failed, the attempt made me feel less alone. Ring. Quiet. Breath. "Happy New Year." Drop. My hands shook. The unknown number texted immediately, "You won't get help from outside." Another message. "US the rules inside." I finally did what fear sometimes forces. I made it public. I walked to a group of women near the mirrors and said loud enough for the room, "There's a man outside the women's locker room door waiting. I need someone to walk out with me." 2 women looked startled. One frowned, like she didn't want involvement. Then another woman, older, strong posture, hair in a tight bun, stood up immediately. "I'll walk with you," she said. She grabbed her bag and motioned for another woman to join. 3 of us moved toward the door, together a small protective formation. Through the glass panel I saw the man straighten slightly, and for the first time his smile faltered. The woman in the hallway shifted too, expression tightening. When we opened the door, the older woman didn't hesitate. She snapped loud, "What are you doing here?" The man raised his hands like he was harmless. "Wrong hallway," he said, the same practice line I'd heard in other situations, and he stepped back. The older woman didn't accept it. "No," she said, "you're at the women's locker room. Move." Her voice carried authority that didn't care about being polite. The man's eyes flicked to me, and then away, calculating. The hallway camera blinked above us. The man took another step back, then turned and walked away down the corridor without hurrying. The woman followed him with her eyes, until he disappeared around the corner. The other woman from the sauna remained in the hallway for 1 extra second, watching me like she was memorizing my face. Then she turned and walked the opposite direction, calm, as if the scene had ended. My body shook so hard my teeth clicked. The older woman stayed beside me until I reached the front lobby. "Tell the manager," she said. I did. The front desk staff stared like I'd brought them a ghost story they didn't want to hear. They promised to review footage. They always promised that. I left in heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, and I thought maybe the worst was over because I'd had witnesses. Then I got to my car and found a small folded note on the driver's seat inside my locked car. My breath stopped. The note was dry. Neat. It said, "Hot rooms make people sweat. You looked pretty when you panicked." My phone buzzed, one last time, calm and pleased. You think the sauna is the scary part. It's the doorways that matter. I sat in the rain-soaked parking lot, shaking, staring at that note, realizing someone had either accessed my car or placed it, when my door was open for a fraction of a second, and the difference didn't matter. The point was the message they could get close without being seen, and they were patient enough to wait for the moment you least want to believe you're being watched. I used to think personal trainers were the safest people in a gym because they wear the badge, know the rules, and act like professionals. But the most terrifying thing I learned in January was how easy it is for a trusted person to cross the line without anyone calling it what it is. It started as something harmless, a free New Year kickoff session. The gym offered to new members 30 minutes with a trainer to set goals and learn equipment. I almost skipped it because I didn't want anyone evaluating my body. But after everything that had happened, the locker room, camera, the parking lot, waiting, the photos, I thought having a staff member around might actually make me safer. The trainer's name was Evan. He greeted me with a bright smile and an energy that felt practiced, clipboard in hand, staff shirt tucked in the exact look that makes people relax. Outside, heavy rain hammered the windows and thunder rolled low, like a reminder that the world was loud enough to hide anything. Evan shook my hand and said, "Claire, right, welcome back." I froze for half a second because I hadn't introduced myself yet. Then I remembered the check-in screen shows your name. "Yeah," I said, forcing normal. He laughed, softly. "Don't worry, I'm good with names," he said, like it was a talent instead of access. He led me to a corner area near the stretching mats, close enough to the manager's office that it should have felt official. He asked routine questions, goals, injuries, schedule, and I answered carefully, trying not to reveal too much. Evan nodded, like he was listening, then repeated details back to me in a way that felt too precise. "So you like coming after work around 6, he said. "And sometimes late," he added casually, eyes on his clipboard. My stomach tightened. "I guess," I said. He smiled. "It's good," he replied. "Consistency is everything." He walked me through a few movements and offered corrections. At first it seemed normal. Brace your core, keep knees tracking the usual. Then the touches started, hands on my hips to square them, fingers, pressing my ribs to remind me to breathe, palm on my lower back, a little too low for comfort. I stepped away once and said, "I'm okay trying to make it casual." Evan laughed like I'd apologize for being ticklish. "I'm a trainer," he said. "This is how we prevent injuries." His tone made it sound like my discomfort was ignorance. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen, the personal trainer who crossed the line 0641 p.m. Location: the person who gets to touch you. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "He can hide behind form." Another message followed, "Watch where his hands go when you look away." My throat went dry. Evan moved me to the cable machine and stood behind me to guide the motion. His hands landed on my shoulders, then slid down my arms, then lingered at my wrists longer than necessary. "Relax," he murmured near my ear. The closeness made my skin crawl. I stepped forward, breaking the space, and he smiled as if I'd made a cute mistake. "You're tense," he said. "I can help with that." The sentence landed wrong. I forced a laugh that wasn't real and said, "I'm fine." Evan's smile sharpened just slightly, the way people react when their script isn't working. "You know," he said, still friendly, "a lot of new girls quit by February because they don't feel comfortable. My job is to make sure you feel comfortable." He emphasized the word, like it meant compliance. Thunder rolled again, and the overhead music dipped for a second, and in that brief quiet, I heard him breathe like he was enjoying the moment he'd created. He asked if I wanted a customized plan. I said no. He asked if I wanted nutrition coaching. I said no. He asked if I wanted to book 3 sessions right now, so you don't lose momentum. I said no again, firmer. Evan's smile held, but his eyes went flat. "You're hard to help," he said softly, like it was a critique. "I didn't ask for help," I replied before I could stop myself. The words hung between us. Evan chuckled like I'd told a joke, then leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Look," he said, "I can be your ally in here, especially with all the weird stuff that happens at night." My stomach dropped because I hadn't told him about the weird stuff. I stared at him. He lifted his hands slightly, palms open, pretending innocence. "We hear things," he said. "People talk." My phone buzzed. "He's checking if you'll confess." Another message. "If you tell him details, he owns them." I forced my voice. Steady. "I'm done," I said. Evan's smile returned, bright and harmless on the surface. "Of course," he replied. "No pressure." Then he did the thing that made my blood go cold. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and held it like he was about to show me something. "Put your number in," he said lightly. "That way, if you ever feel unsafe walking to your car, you can text me, and I'll walk you out." He said it like kindness, like protection, like a solution. But it wasn't an offer. It was a hook. "No," I said. "I'll call the front desk." Evan laughed. "Front desk won't always be staffed," he replied, too quickly, like he'd already noticed that problem too. "I'm here late, a lot." Thunder cracked hard, and the lights flickered once. Evan didn't flinch. He just watched my face, like he was reading how close I was to giving in. I stepped back and said I don't give my number out. His smile tightened. "You're making it weird," he said, and the sentence hit like a slap because it tried to invert reality. His request was normal. My boundary was the issue. I turned and walked toward the front desk without running. Evan followed for a few steps, not close enough to look like chasing, just close enough to keep me aware. When we reached the lobby, the front desk employee looked up. Evan stopped behind me and put on his public smile. "Everything good?" the employee asked. "Yep," Evan said before I could answer. "Just setting goals." I forced my voice out. "I don't want to train with him," I said. The employee blinked, surprised by directness. Evan laughed softly and touched my elbow light, guiding like he was steering me out of my own complaint. "She's just overwhelmed," he said warmly. "January gets people emotional." My stomach turned. I pulled my arm away. "Don't touch me," I said, louder. Two people in the lobby looked over, then looked away, like gym conflict was contagious. The employee cleared his throat. "Evan," he said, uncertain. "Maybe give her space." Evan nodded, still smiling, but his eyes stayed on me with a calm patience that didn't feel like respect. "Of course," he said. He turned to leave, then paused and leaned slightly toward me as he passed voice quiet enough that only I could hear. "If you tell them anything," he murmured, "they're going to ask why you waited. They always do." Then he walked away like nothing happened. My hands shook. I left the gym in heavy rain, thunder rolling keys in my fist, trying to breathe. In my car, my phone buzzed with a notification from the gym app. "Training follow-up, your coach sent you a message." I hadn't given Evan my number. I hadn't agreed to anything. I opened it. The message was inside the app's chat feature sent from Evan's staff profile. It said, "I can keep an eye on you tonight. Come in around 9:30 when it's quieter." Under it, a second message arrived immediately from an unknown number. "He doesn't need your phone number. He already has a way to reach you." My stomach dropped. I drove home, shaking. An hour later, another app message arrived. "Did you get home safe? Then you should say thank you." I didn't respond. I blocked the chat. It reappeared under a new thread, labeled Safety Check. My phone buzzed again, with the calendar event returning now. Scheduled weekly, the personal trainer who crossed the line recurring. In the notes, one line typed itself in, "He gets," to say it's his job. I cancelled my membership the next day. The manager asked if Evan had done anything. I said he touched me after I said no, that he used the staff system to message me, that he knew details I hadn't shared. The manager frowned, like I described something inconvenient, not dangerous. "We'll talk to him," she said. Talk. Not ban. Not report. Not protect. As I walked out into the heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, my phone buzzed one last time from the unknown number, calm and pleased. The ones with badges are the easiest to trust. That's why they're the most efficient. I sat in my car and stared at the gym's glass doors, realizing the line isn't always crossed by strangers in hoodies. Sometimes it's crossed by someone who can say your name with a smile and call your fear January emotions. I didn't think something as small as a towel could make me feel violated, but the most disgusting experience I had at the gym was realizing someone could treat my sweat like a souvenir. It was late January, heavy rain beating the building like it was trying to get in, thunder rolling so low it made the locker doors rattle faintly. I'd switched my routine to earlier hours to avoid the worst crowds and the worst people, and for a few days, it worked. The gym felt almost normal again, machines humming, people focused the usual quiet arrogance of regulars. I finished a workout, wiped down equipment, and headed for the women's locker room to shower. My towel was a plain grey one, with a frayed corner, easy to recognize because I'd owned it forever. I hung it on the hook outside a shower stall, stepped in and tried to breathe like I was allowed to relax. 10 minutes later I stepped out and reached for it. The hook was empty. For a second my brain tried to create innocent explanations. Maybe I hung it on the wrong hook. Maybe someone moved it by accident. Maybe it fell. I looked down. The floor was dry. No towel. My stomach tightened. I walked the row, checking hooks, checking benches. Nothing. I wrapped myself in my spare shirt and hurried to my locker, heart hammering, scanning faces in mirrors, like they might reveal guilt. A woman, near the sinks, glanced at me, and then looked away, and I hated how easy it was to feel embarrassed, like losing a towel was my fault. I asked the front desk if anyone turned in a towel. The employee shrugged. "People leave stuff all the time," he said. "Check lost and found tomorrow." Tomorrow, like time, would disinfect it. I went home furious and uneasy, and the next day I brought a new towel, brighter, hard to miss, because I wanted to see what would happen. I hung it the same way and showered quickly. When I came out, it was still there. Relief hit me so hard it made my knees weak. Maybe it had been a fluke. Maybe I'd panicked for nothing. I started to dry my hair, then remembered I'd forgotten my water bottle and went back out to the locker area, leaving my towel draped over the bench for less than a minute. When I returned, the towel was gone again. Clean theft. Immediate. My stomach dropped. I stepped into the main locker area, bare arms, goosebumped from cold, and I felt that familiar sensation of being watched. Then I saw it not in the women's locker room, but in the mirror, by the hallway. A man standing just outside the keypad door, lingering near the water fountain, like he had a reason to be there. In his hand, bunched casually, was my towel, bright, unmistakable, like he didn't care if I saw. I froze. He lifted the towel slowly to his face, and for 1 second he pressed it to his nose and inhaled like it was a candle scent sample. My stomach turned so hard I nearly gagged. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them and looked directly at the mirror at me, smiling like he'd caught me noticing. My phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The man who sniffed my towel, 075 p.m. Location right outside the keypad. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately, "Don't chase him. That's what he wants." Another message followed, "Get a witness." My hands shook. I grabbed my phone and stepped toward the door, then stopped because the keypad was the boundary, and he was on the other side of it where the hallway cameras might catch him if I could make someone look. I turned to a woman near the bench's mid-30s, earbuds in, and said loud enough to break her bubble, "A guy has my towel. He's right outside. Can you come with me?" She blinked, startled, then saw my face and nodded without questions. 2 more women looked over and stood up, too, curiosity turning into solidarity. We moved together to the keypad door. Through the glass panel we saw him lingering near the fountain, towel in hand, calm as if it belonged to him. When the door opened and the women stepped out, his smile faltered for the first time. He tried to turn it into a joke, immediately lifting the towel like he was returning lost property. "Someone left this," he said, voice light. I was gonna turn it in. The lie was almost elegant, because it contained a truth. Yes, he had intended to keep it with him. One of the women beside me said sharply, "Why is it in your hand?" Another said, "Why are you standing by the women's locker room?" The man's eyes darted, calculating. Then he shrugged, performing innocence. "Relax," he said. "It's a towel." The casualness made my skin crawl. I stepped forward, staying behind the other women, and said, "Give it back." He smiled at me slow, and for the first time he let the mask slip just enough to show pleasure. "Sure," he said, and he extended it toward me, but he didn't let go immediately. His fingers stayed pinched on the fabric, holding it like a tether. "You should wash it," he added softly like a private joke. One woman stepped forward and snatched it from his hand before I had to. The man's smile tightened. He lifted his hands slightly, palms open, and said louder, "I was helping. Helping. Always that word." One of the women said go, in a voice that didn't negotiate. The man looked around, realized witnesses had formed, and backed away slowly. He didn't run. He didn't look afraid. He looked annoyed, like we'd interrupted his hobby. He walked down the hallway toward the exit, hands in pockets, now posture relaxed. The women watched him until he disappeared, then turned to me. I thanked them with a voice that didn't feel like mine. My hands still shook. I took the towel back into the locker room with a tissue over my fingers, like it was evidence, not fabric. I didn't want it touching my skin. I threw it straight into a plastic bag and tied it off. My phone buzzed. "He wanted you to take it home." Another message. "He wanted a thread between your body and his pocket." I went to the front desk immediately, towel bag in hand, and said, "A man just stole my towel from the women's locker room area and was sniffing it in the hallway." The employee's eyes widened, then narrowed into discomfort. "Are you sure?" he asked. The sentence made my blood boil. "Yes," I said. "There were witnesses." The employee swallowed and called a manager. The manager arrived with that practiced expression of someone trying to stay calm for the brand. "What happened?" she asked. I explained quickly. The women who helped me stood behind, nodding. The manager's face tightened. "We'll check cameras," she said. I wanted to scream, because cameras had glitched every time something mattered. Thunder rolled and the lights flickered faintly as if the building itself was embarrassed. The manager pulled up the hallway camera feed on a tablet. The footage lagged. Frames skipped. Then at the exact moment the man lifted the towel, the image froze into a still, time-stamped, motionless. A glitch. Again. The manager stared at it, like it was a coincidence she could hide behind. "It's freezing because of the storm," she said automatically. My stomach dropped. The unknown number texted immediately. "Sea storms are convenient." Another message followed. "He picks days when tech is an excuse." The manager offered to flag his membership if we could identify him. Identify him? Like I was supposed to know the name of every creep who touches my life for seconds and then vanishes. The women described him cap hoodie average build, but it sounded like describing fog. The manager promised to increase patrols. Patrols. Not enforcement. Not safety. I went home and threw the towel bag into the outside trash bin like it was contaminated. That night my phone buzzed with an email from an unknown address. No subject. Inside one line. "You smell like determination this month." My stomach turned. Then a second message arrived from the unknown number, calm and pleased. "He doesn't need your body. Sometimes your sweat is enough for him to feel like he took something." The next day, I found a folded note inside my gym bag, even though I'd never set it down unattended. "Keep bringing bright towels. It makes you easy to track." I cancelled my membership again for the second time in a month, and the manager asked if I wanted a refund, like money could erase disgust. I walked out into heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, and realized the worst part wasn't that he sniffed a towel. It was the way he did it calmly, like he expected the world to shrug, like he believed he could take small pieces of a person until the person stopped feeling like they belonged anywhere. I thought the safest thing about a gym was that nobody knows you until the first week I tried a new place in January, and a new member said my name like he'd been waiting for the moment he could prove I wasn't anonymous anymore. I picked a different gym across town because I needed a clean slate, a place where my face wasn't already attached to incidents and notes and staff policy. Heavy rain was pounding the roof so hard the front windows trembled and thunder rolled in slow waves that made the building's fluorescent lights buzz like they were stressed. The lobby was crowded with resolution energy newbies in fresh shoes, people reading machine stickers like instruction manuals, couples doing awkward stretches. I signed up under a shortened version of my name, on purpose, just my first name and an initial, because I wanted fewer hooks for anyone to grab. The front desk staff handed me a key tag and said, welcome in that bright corporate tone that makes you feel like a number while pretending you're a person. I scanned in, and the gate clicked open with a friendly beep. I headed straight to the weight floor, trying to disappear into routine. 10 minutes in, while I was setting up a cable row, someone behind me said casually, "Claire, right." My stomach dropped. I froze with the handle in my hand and turned slowly. A guy stood there, holding a shaker bottle, maybe late 20s, clean gym clothes, the kind of face that could look harmless in any context. He wore a new member sticker on his shirt, like a badge. He smiled as if we'd been introduced. "Sorry," he added quickly, I think I've seen you." The words made my skin crawl, because "seen you" has two meanings, and his tone didn't clarify which one he meant. "No," I said. "I don't think so." He laughed softly like I was joking. "Yeah, you do," he said. "You were at the other place, the one with the lockers." My throat went dry. I hadn't told anyone here where I used to go. I hadn't posted about it. I hadn't even told my friends the name. "I don't know you," I said sharper. His smile didn't disappear. It just tightened. "I'm not trying to be weird," he replied, and the sentence felt like a warning because it implied he knew exactly what weird would look like if he chose it. He stepped back half a pace, performing respectful distance, then added, "I just wanted to say hi. It's January. Everyone's starting over." Starting over. The phrase made my stomach twist because I realized I couldn't start over if someone had followed me into the next chapter. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen, the new member who knew my name, 0718P. Location, your clean slate. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately, "He's not new. He's using the sticker." Another message followed, ask how he knows your name. My hand shook, but I forced my voice steady. "How do you know my name?" I asked. His eyes flicked toward the front desk, then back to me, like he was checking who was listening. "It's a gym," he said lightly. "Your name's on your account." The answer sounded normal, until you remember normal people don't have access to your account. I stared. "I didn't tell you," I said. He shrugged. "I'm observant," he replied, smiling again like that explained everything. "You should be flattered." My stomach dropped, because that line always comes right before someone decides your discomfort is their entertainment. I turned away from him and started walking toward the front desk, not running, just moving with purpose. He followed at an angle, not close enough to look like chasing, but close enough to keep me aware. "Hey," he said, still friendly, no need to get staff involved. "I'm not doing anything." I didn't answer. At the desk, a young employee looked up. "Everything okay?" she asked. I lowered my voice. "That guy knows my name," I said. I didn't tell him. I just signed up. The employee blinked, confused, then glanced toward him. He raised his shaker bottle in a tiny wave, like he was innocent. "He's a new member," she said slowly, like that was the only category she could place him in. "He has a new member sticker," I replied, keeping my tone tight. "That doesn't explain why he knows my name." The employee's eyes darted to a manager's office, then back to me. "Did you maybe sign in near him?" she asked, already searching for an explanation that didn't require action. "No," I said. The guy drifted closer, stopping a few feet away, smiling politely, like he was part of the conversation. "I'm just being friendly," he said to the employee, warm and calm. "She's overthinking it." Overthinking. The word landed like a familiar slap. I stared at him. "Stop using my name," I said. He smiled wider. "Sure, Claire," he replied, and the way he said it, soft-pleased, made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. He likes saying it out loud. Another message, "It makes you feel owned." The employee cleared her throat. "Sir," she said. "Careful. Please give her space." He nodded immediately, like a person who loves rules, because rules can be gamed. "Of course," he said, stepping back 2 paces, still smiling. "I didn't mean anything." Then he walked away slowly, not leaving, just relocating to a spot where he could still see me, reflected in mirrors. The employee offered me the same corporate comfort sentence I'd heard before. "If he does anything, tell us." Anything. Like knowing my name wasn't already something. I forced myself to continue my workout because leaving immediately would teach him what power feels like. I moved to a machine near other women trying to rebuild the illusion of normal. 10 minutes passed. Then I felt it again, the pressure of a gaze. I looked up into the mirror and saw him behind me. Not directly, but positioned. So our reflections lined up, his face, calm eyes on me, the new member sticker still on his shirt like a joke. He mouthed something silently. I couldn't read it. My phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number. It was a screenshot of my membership profile page from the gym app, my first name, my last initial, and beneath it, a field I hadn't noticed. Emergency contact. The contact name was blurred, but the last 4 digits were visible. Under the screenshot, one line, "You should change that." My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. That meant someone had accessed my profile from inside the system. I hadn't even downloaded the app yet. I turned off the machine and walked straight to the locker hallway, not to change, but to breathe in a space with more women and more noise. When I came back out, he was closer, pretending to stretch near my path like coincidence. "You okay?" he asked softly. "You look stressed." The fake concern made my stomach turn. I didn't answer. I walked fast toward the exit. As I passed the front desk, I heard the employee ask him, "Sir, are you with her?" like she was trying to help. He smiled and said, "Not yet," lightly, like it was a joke. The employee laughed nervously, the way people do when they don't want to believe a joke could be a threat. Outside rain hit me cold and thunder rolled like distant applause. I hurried to my car, scanned the lot, got in, locked the doors. My phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. "He followed your account, not your feet." Another message followed immediately. "That's why new places don't matter." In my rearview mirror, I saw him walk out of the gym doors, slowly, still wearing the new member sticker, still smiling, scanning the lot. He didn't approach my car. He didn't have to. He simply raised his hand and tapped 2 fingers against his temple, like a salute, then pointed toward me, like he'd confirmed a target. I drove away, shaking. At home, an email arrived from the new gym's welcome address. "Hi Claire, here's how to get started." I hadn't provided that email at the desk. The subject line included my full last name, not just my initial. My stomach dropped. The unknown number texted one last time, calm and pleased. "He doesn't need to follow you home. He can let the system deliver you." I cancelled that membership the next morning before I even used it. The manager apologized and said they'd review access logs. After the fact. I left in heavy rain, thunder rolling, and understood the real horror of January gyms isn't just the crowds. It's how many doors open with a scan, and how many people can learn your name without ever earning the right to say it. I used to think treadmills were the safest machines because they face forward and keep you visible, until I got harassed on one and realized a treadmill can become a trap the second someone decides to control the space behind you. It was the end of January, still storming, heavy rain making the roof roar, thunder rolling low enough to vibrate the mirrors. I'd gone to yet another gym on a day pass because I was trying to salvage my routine without committing to a place that could become predictable. The front desk was busy, the lobby loud, and the staff looked overwhelmed in that specific way. January produces too many new faces, too many problems, not enough attention. I went straight to the cardio room, picked a treadmill near the middle, where other people were on either side, and started walking. I kept my headphones low, not because I wanted to hear music, but because lately I wanted to hear footsteps. 5 minutes in, I noticed a man step onto the treadmill behind me. Not beside me, behind me. The treadmill row was arranged in 2 lines, one facing the mirrors, the other facing away. He chose the one directly behind mine, close enough that if he leaned forward, he'd be inside my personal space. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Then I heard him laugh softly, like he was reacting to something funny, but there was no one with him. Then he spoke not loud enough for others, just loud enough for me. "You always pick the middle," he said. My stomach dropped. I didn't turn. I watched the mirror reflection instead. His eyes were on me, not on his own console. He wasn't running. He was walking at my exact pace, matching me like a shadow with a machine. I increased my speed slightly. A second later, his treadmill speed increased, too matching. My phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen Harassed on the treadmill 0622p. M. Location right behind you. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. He's using the machine to stay close without touching. Another message followed. Don't turn around fast. He wants you to flinch. I steadied my breathing and kept walking eyes forward, pretending I was just focused. In the mirror, I saw him lift his phone once, not pointed at his face, but angled toward my back, like he was checking something. I felt the familiar nausea of being recorded. Then he spoke again, calm, conversational. You've got good legs, he said. January legs. Still motivated. The words made my skin crawl. I reached for the treadmill's stop button, intending to step off, and that's when my treadmill suddenly increased speed by itself, just a notch, but enough to force me into a jog. My heart jumped. I slapped the speed down. It went back up again a second later as if someone else had pressed it. I looked at the console. No error message. No glitch. Just the speed changing. My stomach dropped because I remembered something. Some treadmills have linked demo modes for trainers, and some have remote control features for class settings. Or maybe it was simpler. Maybe his hand was reaching forward from behind, tapping my console while my body blocked my view. I tried to step to the side rails to stop safely, and the speed jumped again, forcing me to keep moving or fall. Panic rose hot in my chest. In the mirror, I saw him smiling. Not big, small, satisfied. He leaned forward slightly and said softly, "Don't stop. You're finally working." My skin went cold. I yanked the emergency clip, the little safety key that stops the belt if you fall. It wasn't there. The slot was empty. My breath caught. I stared at the console, hands shaking. Without the safety key, stopping quickly meant hitting the stop button and trusting it or stepping off while the belt was moving. My phone buzzed. He took the safety key. Another message: he wants you to choose between falling and staying. I looked left and right. People were running headphones and eyes, dead forward, each trapped in their own private world. This is what gyms create, a room full of bodies, and nobody watching. I raised my voice, not screaming but loud enough to break the bubble. "Hey," I said, "my treadmill is malfunctioning." No one reacted. The man behind me laughed softly, like he enjoyed how invisible I was. I shouted again, louder, "Can someone help me?" A woman 2 treadmills down glanced over briefly, then looked away like she didn't want to get involved. My throat tightened. I hit the stop button hard, repeatedly. The belt slowed for half a second, then surged again like someone was overriding it. I felt my legs starting to burn, not from exercise, but from fear. I knew if I stumbled, there was no safety clip to save me. In the mirror, I saw his hand lift. He was holding something small between 2 fingers. A black plastic clip. The safety key. He let it dangle like a toy. Then he mouthed silently, "Ask." My stomach turned. My phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number. "He wants you to beg for basic safety." Another message followed. "Don't." I forced my breathing steady and did the only thing that felt like control. I stepped my feet wide onto the side rails, gripping the front bar, letting the belt run under me without my weight. It was awkward and dangerous, but it stopped me from having to keep pace. I leaned forward and shouted toward the nearest staff station, "I need help." The word help finally cut through the room because it carried urgency that isn't sexy or dramatic. A staff member, a young guy with a headset, looked up startled and started walking over. The man behind me stepped back from his treadmill, still smiling, still calm. The staff member reached my machine and frowned at the missing safety key. "Where's your clip?" he asked, annoyed, like I'd misplaced it. I pointed backward with a shaking hand. "He has it," I said. The staff member turned. The man held up his hands. "I don't know what she's talking about," he said warmly. "I just got on. She's freaking out." The staff member hesitated, caught between 2 scripts, customer complaint and customer denial. The man casually dropped the clip onto his own treadmill console and because the staff member wasn't watching the exact second, it looked like it had been there all along. The staff member glanced at it, then back at me, and his expression tightened into that familiar look inconvenience. "Ma'am," he said, "these clips fall out sometimes." Fall out. I felt heat rush to my face. "It didn't fall out," I said. "He took it." The man smiled and shrugged. "Why would I do that?" he asked, calm performing logic. "I don't even know her." The staff member looked uncomfortable, like he wanted the easiest explanation. Thunder rolled and the lights flickered faintly, and for a moment the music dipped, and in that brief quiet, the man leaned toward me and whispered softly, "Run faster next time." Then the music returned and his voice disappeared under it like it had never existed. The staff member finally reached for my console and hit stop, holding it down until the belt slowed and stopped. Relief hit my legs so hard, they almost gave out. He snapped a new safety clip into place and said there, like he'd fixed a minor issue, "Try it now." I stared at him. "I'm leaving," I said. The staff member sighed, as if I was dramatic. "Okay," he replied, and turned away. The man behind me stepped off his treadmill and walked past, close enough that I smelled his cologne again. He didn't touch me. He didn't need to. He murmured just for me, "You look better when you're scared." My stomach dropped. I walked straight to the front desk, shaking, and said, "That man harassed me on the treadmill and stole my safety clip." The front desk employee blinked. "Did he touch you?" she asked, and the question made me want to scream. "No," I said. "He controlled my machine." She frowned like she didn't have a category for that. "We can talk to him," she offered, already minimizing. I didn't stay to watch the conversation, because I'd learned what talk means in gyms. I left into heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, and sat in my car shaking. Then my phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number. It was a close-up of my treadmill console, taken from the side, showing the empty safety slot before staff replaced it. Under it, one line, "You didn't fall. Good. Next time, he'll make sure you do." My throat tightened. I tried calling 911, again, out of stubbornness. Ring. Quiet. Breath. Happy New Year. Drop. The unknown number texted immediately, calm, and "Please, treadmills are perfect. People think you're just running. They don't realize you're trying to escape." I drove home, shaking legs aching in a way no workout should cause, and realized the most terrifying part wasn't the missing clip. It was how quickly the room decided it was a malfunction instead of a person, because a machine is easier to blame than admitting someone can hurt you without ever laying a hand on you. I thought the locker room showers were the one place in a gym where people respected privacy by default, until I realized how easily someone can watch you without stepping into the room at all. It was late January, the rain outside still heavy enough to turn the parking lot into a mirror, thunder rolling like a slow drumbeat that never quite stops. I'd chosen a gym day pass again, because committing to a membership felt like handing someone a schedule, and I'd learned January is the month when schedules become weapons. The women's locker room was busy loud with hair dryers and locker doors, and that noise used to comfort me because it meant there were witnesses. After my workout, I headed to the showers with my toiletries and a bright towel, trying to keep the routine normal. The shower area had a row of stalls with curtains and a tiled corridor that led back to the main locker room. At the far end of that corridor was a door that opened into a staff-only utility hall, janitor's closets, supply storage, a shortcut. Staff used to move cleaning carts without weaving through members. I noticed that door because it was propped open slightly, with a wedge, like someone had wanted airflow. At first I didn't care. Then I started showering and felt that sensation I'd come to recognize being watched. It's hard to explain because it's not a sound or a sight. It's a pressure on the back of your neck, a small tightening in your stomach that makes you want to turn around even when there's nothing there. I told myself it was paranoia, but paranoia is usually a response to a pattern, and I had plenty of patterns. I finished washing, turned the water off, and reached for my towel. The corridor outside the store was quiet. For a second, the hairdryers farther away, now the locker room noise muffled by steam. Through the gap between the curtain and the tile wall, I saw a faint movement, just a shadow crossing the corridor, then stopping. A second later, a soft click. Not a locker, not a phone shutter. Something small, like plastic tapping tile. I froze. The wedge under the staff door shifted slightly as if someone had adjusted it. Then I saw it, the edge of a mop handle moving. Not cleaning, just repositioning. And attached to it, taped near the end, was a small rectangular mirror angled toward the shower stalls. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. Then the mirror caught the light, and I saw my own blurred reflection in it. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. Someone was using a cleaning tool, like a periscope. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The janitor was watching me shower, 0809 p. Location, the staff door. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. He's not allowed in the women's room. That's why he uses the door. Another message followed. Don't yell until you're dressed. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my towel. I wrapped myself quickly, not caring if it was sloppy, and yanked the shower curtain open. The corridor was empty except for the mop handle slowly retracting like a snake being pulled back into a hole. The staff door moved just a fraction, then went still. My heart hammered. I stepped forward, keeping my towel tight, and slammed my palm against the staff door. Stop! I shouted, loud enough to cut through the hairdryers. Who's there? The locker room noise paused. A few women looked over, startled. Footsteps hurried. The staff door opened a crack, and an older man in a janitor uniform appeared, eyes wide, pretending confusion. Waddy snapped, as if I'd interrupted him unfairly. The mop handle was behind him, mirror, still taped to it, angled away now like he hoped nobody would notice. I pointed at it. That mirror, I said, voice shaking with rage. You were watching. The man's face hardened, then shifted into the expression of someone choosing denial over shame. No, he said, quickly. I was fixing something. Fixing. The word was so absurd I almost laughed. A woman behind me leaned in and saw the mirror. Her face changed. What the hell? She said. Another woman pulled out her phone and started recording, and the janitor's confidence faltered for half a second. He stepped back and tried to close the door. I shoved my foot forward to keep it from shutting, because I knew once it shut, he'd disappear into the staff hallway, and the gym would call it a misunderstanding. Get a manager, I said to the woman behind me. No. My phone buzzed. Now there are witnesses. Another message. He's going to say it was an accident. The janitor's voice rose defensive. I didn't do anything, he insisted. You people are crazy. Crazy. There it was again, the attempt to turn anger into instability. The woman filming said sharply, Why is there a mirror taped to your mop? The janitor's eyes darted. He stammered, then snapped. For cleaning under benches, like mirrors are normal janitorial tools. The lie was weak, because he hadn't even tried to make it believable. The manager arrived, quickly drawn by the raised voices. She took in the scene, the towel, the filming phone, the staff door held open by my foot, and her face tightened into a corporate panic. What's going on? She asked, trying to sound calm. I pointed at the mirror again. He was watching women shower, I said. He had a mirror taped to his mop. The manager's eyes flicked to the mirror, and I saw the moment she understood how bad it looked. She snapped at the janitor. Step away. He started protesting, but the woman filming moved closer, and the janitor's words turned into muttering. The manager turned to me. Are you okay? She asked, and the question sounded like a fawn, not concern. No, I said. Call the police. The manager hesitated just a fraction too long. Let's not escalate, she began. The word escalate made my blood boil. He escalated, I snapped. Cold. The manager's jaw tightened, and she nodded reluctantly, then told another employee to call. The janitor tried to slip past, but the women blocked him, and for a second the locker room felt like it should have felt all along, a group of people deciding that privacy matters. The janitor's face twisted into anger. I have to work, he muttered. The woman filming replied cold, Not here. Thunder rolled outside and the lights flickered faintly. And I hated how the storm always seemed to arrive for these moments, like the world wanted a soundtrack. Police did come, but not fast enough to stop the damage. They took statements. The manager tried to keep the conversation quiet, as if the worst part was other members hearing. The janitor insisted it was a misunderstanding, that the mirror was for cleaning, that the door was propped for ventilation. The officers looked skeptical, but skepticism isn't justice. They said they'd file a report. The manager promised the janitor was terminated. She said it like a solution, like firing him, erased what he'd seen. I left, shaking hair still wet, towel clutched too tight, and sat in my car with rain hammering the windshield. My phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number, calm and pleased. See, even a uniform can be a disguise. Another message followed immediately, and even when you win, you still had to stand there wrapped in a towel to prove it. I stared at the gym's bright doors through the rain and realized the real horror wasn't just the janitor. It was how close the manager came to calling it, not an escalation, and how often people like him rely on that hesitation more than they rely on stealth. I didn't understand how dangerous a door could be until a man blocked the exit and forced me to choose between making a scene and pretending I wasn't scared. It was the last week of January, heavy rain still pounding the city like it was trying to wash the month away, thunder rolling so low it made the gym's glass panels tremble. I'd gone to a smaller local gym on a trial pass because I was tired of chains that hid behind policy, and I wanted a place where the staff actually watched the floor. The gym was busy but not chaotic, and for the first 30 minutes I almost relaxed. Almost. Then I noticed him mid-30s, maybe broad build, wearing a hoodie, even indoors, not lifting, not stretching, just lingering near the hallway that led to the back emergency exit. At first, I told myself he was waiting for someone. People do that. But he didn't check his phone. He didn't look at the door. He watched the people who walked toward it, watched how they moved, watched who was alone. I did my sets and tried to ignore him. I kept my routine tight, no wandering, no pauses long enough to be approached. When I finished, I went to the locker room, changed quickly, and returned to the main floor with my jacket on, gym bag on my shoulder, ready to leave. The front entrance was crowded with people coming in, and the rain outside had formed a line of wet footprints across the lobby. I thought about using the back exit because it led to my parking area, and because I wanted to avoid the crowd. I shouldn't have. As I headed toward the hallway, I saw him step away from the wall and drift into the corridor ahead of me, casually, like coincidence. The corridor was narrower than the main floor, lit by a strip of harsh fluorescent lights, with a door at the end marked Exit. The man stopped near that door and pretended to stretch his arms against the wall, taking up just enough space that I couldn't pass without brushing him. I slowed, trying to decide whether to turn around. He glanced over and smiled. "Heading out?" he asked, friendly, as if he was making small talk. I nodded without speaking. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen HE. Blocked. The exit door 0852P. Location. The narrow hall. The only button was accept pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "Don't squeeze past him. He wants contact." Another message followed. "Make him move." My throat went dry. I forced my voice steady. "Excuse me," I said, and waited. He didn't move. He just smiled wider, like the word excuse was permission to continue. "It's raining like crazy," he said, still friendly. "You got a ride?" I didn't answer. I tried. "Excuse me," again firmer. He tilted his head. "Why are you so tense?" he asked. "I'm just being polite." Polite. Always. That word the shield people use when they want to push past consent. He took a tiny step closer to the door, making the corridor feel smaller, and I realized he wasn't just blocking the exit. He was blocking my ability to leave without touching him. I glanced back toward the main floor. It was busy, but it felt far away, like a different building. The music was muffled here. The rain sounded louder. Thunder rolled like a warning. The man leaned his shoulder against the wall and folded his arms casually. "You can wait out the rain," he said. "No rush." The calmness made my skin crawl. I pulled my phone out and held it in front of me like a small shield. "Move," I said, and my voice finally carried the edge of fear. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned sharper. "Wow," he said softly. "You think I'm going to hurt you?" He said it like a joke, but his eyes were too focused. "Move," I repeated. He didn't. He glanced toward the exit door and then back at me. "It's locked, anyway," he said casually. "They lock it during storms." My stomach dropped because I'd heard that excuse before and because I didn't know if it was true. I stepped closer to the door, keeping distance from him, and reached for the crash bar. He shifted at the same time, and his hand landed on the bar too, not gripping it hard, just placing it there, claiming shared ownership of the exit. "See?" he murmured close enough that his breath hit my face. "You don't need to go." My skin went cold. I stepped back, fast. He smiled, like he'd proven something. My phone buzzed. "He wants you to feel like the door is his." Another message followed, louder. "Get witnesses." I swallowed hard and raised my voice. "Get away from me," I shouted, and the words echoed in the narrow hall, bouncing off tile and metal. The man's smile disappeared. For the first time, he looked annoyed. "Shh," he snapped, and that single sound, "shh," made my stomach drop, because it wasn't polite anymore. It was command. Footsteps approached from the main floor, quick, drawn by the shout. A staff member appeared at the entrance of the hallway, eyes wide. "Everything okay?" he asked, already bracing for conflict. I stepped sideways, so the staff member could see me clearly. "He won't let me pass," I said, voice shaking but loud. The man immediately lifted his hands, palms open, performing innocence. "I'm just talking," he said warmly. "She's freaking out." The staff member frowned, looking between us. The man added calmer. "She tried to push past me. I told her the door is locked because of the storm." He said it like a safety tip. The staff member glanced at the exit door, then at me. "Is it locked?" he asked. And I realized the staff member wasn't sure either, which meant the building's safety rules were vague enough to be weaponized. "I don't care," I snapped. "I want him away from me." The staff member stepped closer, authority rising. "Sir," he said, "move away from the exit." The man's jaw tightened. For a second, his eyes flashed with anger, then he forced the smile back on like a mask. "Sure," he said, stepping aside slowly, but as he moved, he brushed his shoulder against mine. Light controlled just enough contact to make my skin crawl. "Accident," he murmured, smiling. The staff member didn't see the brush. "Oh," he pretended not to. I walked past, quickly pushed the crash bar, and the door opened into cold rain and darkness, which shocked me because it meant the man had lied about it being locked. He'd been blocking the door simply because he could. I stepped outside and breathed in wet air like freedom, but my hands still shook. Behind me I heard the staff member tell him, "Don't do that again," in a tone that sounded like a warning, not a consequence. The man chuckled softly, like the warning was entertainment. I hurried through the rain to my car keys, ready, and got in fast. As I pulled out, thunder rolled, and I glanced back at the exit door. The man stood just inside the glass, watching me leave, with the calm patience of someone who hadn't lost anything. My phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number, calm and pleased. He didn't want to hurt you. He wanted to see if you'd ask permission to leave. Another message followed immediately. And he learned that most staff will call it just talking. I drove home shaking, realizing how thin the line is between a narrow hallway and a trap, and how easy it is for someone to turn a simple exit into a test of how much fear you'll swallow to avoid being labeled dramatic. I didn't think a simple no could trigger someone like a switch, until a guy at the gym heard it and decided my rejection was a personal humiliation he needed to punish in public. It was midweek in late January, heavy rain hammering the roof so hard the lobby windows looked like they were vibrating, and thunder rolling low enough that it made the mirrors hum. The resolution crowd was still there, but thinner. Now fewer bright new shoes, more familiar faces, more people who acted like the gym belonged to them. I was at a cable station finishing a set when a loud voice behind me said, "That's not how you do it." I turned and saw him Thick neck, tight shirt, big headphones around his neck like a trophy. The kind of guy who drops weights just to remind the room he exists. He smiled at me, like we were already in a conversation. "You need a real program," he said. "I can show you." I kept my tone neutral. "I'm fine," I replied, and went back to adjusting the pin. He stepped closer anyway, leaning into my space like it was normal. "Come on," he said, laughing. "Don't be like that. I see you in here all the time. You're dedicated. That's hot." The word hot landed like a handprint. My stomach tightened. I straightened up and said clear, "I'm not interested." He blinked once, still smiling. Then the smile hardened at the edges. Not interested in what he asked too loudly, like he wanted witnesses for the misunderstanding he was about to manufacture. "In talking," I said. "In whatever this is." His laugh came out sharp. "Wow," he said. "You think you're too good for me." The sentence made my skin crawl because it turned my boundary into arrogance. I didn't argue. I grabbed my water bottle and moved to another station. He followed, not rushing, just staying close enough that I felt him behind me like heat. "Hey," he called louder. "I'm talking to you." People glanced over and then looked away, the gym's favorite reflex. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen the gym bro who raged when I rejected him 0711 p.m. Location: the weight floor. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number, texted immediately. "He wants an audience." Another message followed. "Don't explain. He'll turn it into a debate." I kept moving, trying to make it boring for him, but he wouldn't let it be boring. He walked beside me now, matching my pace, and his voice shifted into that fake friendly tone that's really a threat wearing a smile. "You know what your problem is," he said. "You come in here in January acting like you're on some mission, but you don't know how to take a compliment." I didn't answer. He laughed again, harsher. "That's right," he said. "Ignore me." "That's cute." Then his face changed suddenly, like the mask slipped. "Listen," he snapped, low enough that only I could hear. "Don't embarrass me." The words hit like cold water, because he wasn't asking anymore. I turned to face him, keeping my voice steady. "You're embarrassing yourself," I said. His eyes widened. For a second I saw pure anger unfiltered, the kind that looks for permission. Then he stepped closer, too close, and hissed, "Say that again." My heart hammered. I raised my voice on purpose. "Back up," I said, loud enough that people nearby had to hear. Heads turned. Someone paused their set. The guy's face snapped back into performance mode. He lifted his hands slightly, palms out, and laughed like I was the crazy one. "Whoa," he said loudly. "Relax. I'm just talking. Just talking." Always the same phrase, the same shield. I walked straight to the front desk, forcing my legs to stay steady. He followed for a few steps, then stopped and called after me. "Go ahead, tell on me. They'll laugh." At the desk, the employee looked up, already tired. "Can I help you?" he asked. I said, "That man is harassing me." The employee glanced toward the weight floor. The guy was standing there, with a casual stance, smiling, waiting. The employee's expression tightened into uncertainty. "What did he do?" he asked, like I needed a bruise to qualify. "He won't leave me alone," I said. "He's getting aggressive." The employee exhaled and said, "Okay, I'll talk to him." Talk. That word again, the softest possible response to someone testing how far they can push. The employee walked over. I watched from the desk, heart hammering, as the guy's body language changed instantly. Shoulders relaxed, smile warm, harmless. He nodded along, then gestured toward me with a little laugh like I was overreacting. Then, without warning, he slammed a weight plate onto a bar hard enough to make several people flinch. The employee stepped back, startled. The guy's smile stayed, but his eyes were hot. He didn't need to hit anyone. He just needed the room to remember he could make noise. The employee returned to the desk, looking annoyed at me, not him. "He says you misunderstood," he said. "Misunderstood." The word made my stomach turn. "He told me not to embarrass him," I said. "He got in my face." The employee shrugged, slightly helpless. "If he touches you, we can take action," he said. And I felt something in me go cold because I understood the rule: fear doesn't count until it becomes injury. I didn't finish my workout. I left into heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, and headed for my car with keys between my fingers. Halfway across the lot, I heard footsteps behind me, heavier than mine, fast enough to close distance. I didn't turn. I walked faster. "Hey," he shouted, and his voice sounded different outside, less performative, more raw. "You think you can just disrespect me and walk away?" I reached my car and yanked the door open. He was close enough now that I saw rain dripping off his eyebrows. His face was twisted with anger, and for the first time there was no smile at all. He slapped his hand against my car window, one loud smack that made me jump, and said, "Say sorry." My breath caught. My phone buzzed. "Don't apologize." Another message. "Get inside and lock." I slid into the seat, slammed the door, locked it, and started the engine with shaking hands. He leaned toward the glass eyes fixed on mine. "You're gonna regret this," he mouthed, and then he stepped back slowly, still staring as I reversed out. As I pulled away, my phone lit with a call from an unknown number. I answered out of stubbornness, needing to hear a normal voice. Ring, quiet, breath. "Happy New Year," a man whispered. The call dropped. My skin went cold. The unknown number texted immediately. "He wants you to feel small, in a big parking lot." Another message followed. "He'll tell himself you started it." At home, I found a folded note jammed into the crack of my apartment door, dry despite the rain placed like a delivery. Inside, one sentence, in angry block letters: "You don't get to say no to me like that." My hands shook. I didn't open the door until I checked the hallway. I didn't sleep until sunrise. The next day, I reported him to the gym again. The manager asked if I had his name. Of course I did. They said they'd watch for him. Watch. Not ban. Not report. Not protect. That night, my phone buzzed one last time, from the unknown number, calm and pleased. The ones who rage are easy to see. The real ones are watching how fast you lock your doors afterward. I didn't expect the person who stalked me at the gym to be another woman, but January taught me. Obsession doesn't have a gender, it just needs a target and a reason. It started quietly the way most terrifying things do, as something I could have dismissed if my instincts weren't already sharpened by everything that came before. It was late January, heavy rain turning the city into wet reflections, thunder rolling in slow, heavy waves that made the building's lights flicker like a tired island. I'd gone to a smaller gym on a short-term pass, trying to keep my routine without becoming predictable, and for the first half hour, nothing felt wrong. Then I noticed her in the mirror wall. She wasn't staring openly. She was doing that thing people do when they want to watch without looking like they're watching, eyes flicking to reflections, head tilted down as if focused on her phone body, positioned so she could see me without facing me. She was around my age, maybe a little older, hair pulled tight, clean gym clothes, no wasted movement. She looked disciplined in a way that felt almost military. At first I told myself she was just another person tracking her own form. But every time I changed stations, she changed too, never directly beside me, always one or two machines away, close enough to stay in the same line of sight. When I moved to the free weights, she drifted to the stretching racks. When I went to the cables, she took a treadmill in the row that faced my reflection. It felt less like coincidence and more like orbiting. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen, stalked by another woman at the gym 0637P. Location, mirrors, and distance. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. She's using normal as camouflage. Another message followed. Watch when you look away. I tried to test it. I went to refill my bottle at the fountain, then turned as if I'd forgotten something and doubled back quickly. She was already shifting position as if she'd predicted my path and was adjusting to keep me in view. When our eyes met directly for the first time, she didn't look away like a normal stranger would. She held my gaze and smiled, slightly controlled, almost polite. then looked down at her phone and typed with her thumbs like she'd just confirmed a detail. My stomach tightened. I moved toward the front desk, intending to create witnesses, but she didn't follow openly. She stayed at her machine, still within mirror range, still calm. I told myself I was overreacting. The word overreacting has haunted me all month, but I tried it anyway because it's what people say when they're tired of being afraid. I finished my workout and headed to the locker room. The women's locker room was busy, but not loud enough to feel safe. I changed quickly, staying aware of reflections, and as I zipped my bag, I noticed her entering. She didn't head to a locker. She walked slowly down the aisle, eyes scanning like she was looking for someone specific. Then, she stopped behind me, not too close, and spoke softly, like we were already acquaintances. "You're back," she said. My stomach dropped. I turned. "Sorry," I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She smiled again, small and neat. "I've seen you," she said, "at the other place." The exact phrase the new member guy had used. My skin went cold. "I don't know you," I said. She tilted her hand. "I know," she replied, and the calmness in her voice made it worse. "That's why I'm talking to you now." My throat went dry. "Why?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked at my gym bag, like it was a clue. "You switched gyms," she said. "You think it fixes it?" The sentence landed like a threat, because it implied she'd been tracking the pattern, not the moment. I took a step back. "Leave me alone," I said. Her smile tightened. "Don't be dramatic," she murmured, and the words were identical to what the sauna woman had said, like there was a script being passed around. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the locker room exit. She followed, still not rushing, still keeping that calm distance, like she wanted me to feel watched, without giving me an obvious accusation. At the keypad door, I stopped and turned. "Stop following me," I said louder. A couple women glanced over, then returned to their lockers. The woman's expression didn't change. "I'm not following you," she said, and her tone made it sound like I was silly. She lifted her phone slightly, screen facing herself, and I heard a soft click camera shutter. My stomach dropped. "Did you just take a picture?" I snapped. She shrugged lightly. "For my safety," she replied. "So I remember." "Remember what?" My hands shook. I pushed through the locker room door, into the hallway, and headed for the front desk, forcing my legs to stay steady. The woman followed into the hallway, stopping just short of the lobby, like she understood cameras and boundaries. The front desk staff looked up as I approached, and I said, "That woman is harassing me and taking pictures." The staff member blinked, then looked toward her. The woman stepped forward just enough to be heard and said warmly, "I'm not harassing her. I'm concerned. She's been causing problems at different gyms." Causing problems. The phrase made my blood run cold, because it reframed me as the hazard. "That's not true," I said, voice shaking. The woman smiled, still calm. "Isn't it?" she asked softly, and the softness felt like a knife because it invited the room to doubt me. The staff member's expression tightened into uncertainty. "Ma'am," he said to her, "please don't take photos of other members." She nodded immediately. Compliant. Perfect. "Of course," she said. "I just want everyone to be safe." Safe. Another weapon word used to justify control. She stepped back, smiling, and walked away toward the cardio area, like the conversation had ended. The staff member turned to me. "Are you okay?" he asked, and I hated that question, because it always comes after the damage, not before. "No," I said. "She's lying about me." He shrugged helplessly. "If she does it again, tell us," he offered. Again. Always again. As if one incident is never enough to earn protection. I left the gym into heavy rain, thunder rolling like distant applause, and walked fast to my car. Halfway there, my phone buzzed, with an email notification from an address I didn't recognize. "No," subject line. Inside was a photo of me in the locker room mirror, taken from behind my face, partially visible timestamped. Under it one sentence, "You should stop running." My stomach dropped. My phone buzzed again with a text from the unknown number. "She's not jealous. She's recruited." Another message followed. "She's making a file." I sat in my car, shaking rain, hammering the windshield, trying to make sense of why a stranger would do this. Then I remembered the way she said, "You're back," like she'd been waiting, and the way she claimed I caused problems, like she'd rehearsed the accusation. It felt less like random obsession and more like surveillance, with a purpose. I drove home, taking main roads, avoiding quiet turns, checking mirrors constantly. When I reached my building, I found a folded note tucked under my windshield wiper, dry despite the rain, placed carefully. Inside neat handwriting, "We talked. They know about you now." My throat tightened. That meant she'd already planted a story, and stories spread faster than evidence. I tried calling 911 out of stubbornness. Ring. Quiet. Breath. "Happy New Year," a man whispered. The call dropped. My skin went cold. The unknown number texted immediately calm and pleased. "She doesn't need to follow you home. She just needs you to feel like you've lost the right to be believed." The next day I went back to the gym only to cancel the pass and asked the manager if anyone had accessed my profile. The manager frowned and said they couldn't discuss member information. I asked if a woman had complained about me. The manager hesitated just long enough to confirm it without words. "We take concerns seriously," she said carefully. My stomach dropped because I realized the woman had done the most effective thing possible. She'd turned me into a rumor, and rumors don't require proof. As I walked out into heavy rain, thunder, rolling my phone, buzzed one last time. From the unknown number, "Calm and pleased men try to take your body. Some women try to take your reputation. Both are a way to keep you from coming back." I didn't think a piece of paper could make me feel haunted, but the night I found a note inside my gym bag, I realized someone had been close enough to touch my things without ever touching me. It was late January, the kind of storm that turns the whole city into a wet echo chamber. Heavy rain hammering the roof and thunder rolling low like something dragging across the sky. I'd gone to a gym on a 3-day trial because I kept telling myself the safest strategy was to stay unpredictable, to never let a stranger learn a routine. The place was busy but not chaotic, and I chose a spot on the weight floor where cameras were visible and people were clustered close enough that I wasn't isolated. I kept my bag beside me on the bench between sets, one hand always brushing the strap like a habit I hated that fear had taught me. For almost an hour, nothing happened. No staring, no smile, more. No hovering phones. I started to relax, which should have been a warning in itself. I finished my last set, wiped down the equipment, and headed to the women's locker room to change, telling myself I'd done it one normal night. The locker room was loud, with dryers and locker doors, and I felt that temporary relief that comes from noise, because noise feels like witnesses. I changed quickly, hair still damp, and I noticed my bag felt slightly heavier when I lifted it off the bench. Not dramatically heavier, just enough that my body noticed before my brain could explain it. I told myself maybe my water bottle had shifted. Maybe I'd tossed my jacket in differently. I zipped it, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out. The lobby was bright, rain streaking the glass doors, thunder vibrating the metal frames. I scanned out, stepped into the rain, and hurried to my car with keys threaded between my fingers. I got in, locked the doors, and sat there for a second, with my heart still doing that fast, stupid thing it does after survival. That's when my phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The note, left in my gym bag, 0903 p.m. Location, inside your zipper. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It came back. An unknown number texted immediately, "Don't drive yet. Check the main pocket." Another message followed. "He wants you to take it home first." My stomach dropped. I stared at my bag on the passenger seat like it was a live animal. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to open it. But the warning felt too specific to ignore. I pulled a tissue from the glove compartment, like I'd learned to treat my own belongings as evidence, and I used it to pinch the zipper. The sound of the zipper opening in the quiet car felt too loud. Inside, my things were arranged slightly wrong. Nothing stolen, nothing obvious, just shifted the way someone shifts items when they're searching for the best hiding place. I dug carefully and found it wedged against the inner lining, a folded note crisp and dry like it had never been near a storm. My name was written on the outside in neat block letters. Not just my first name, my full name. My throat tightened. I unfolded it, with the tissue still between my fingers. The handwriting was clean, controlled, almost polite. It said, "You keep switching places. It doesn't matter. Your bag is always with you." Under that one more line, check the small pocket you never use. My hands started shaking so hard the paper rattled. I didn't want to check any pocket, but curiosity and terror have the same heartbeat. I reached into the tiny zipper pocket inside the bag, the one meant for keys or lip balm, and felt something hard and smooth. A small plastic disc, no bigger than a coin, taped to the fabric. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. I peeled it free and stared at it in the dome light. It looked like a basic tracker tag, the kind people attach to keys or luggage. My phone buzzed again. "That's not yours." Another message, "If you take it inside, he knows your door." I sat, frozen rain hammering the windshield, thunder rolling like distant applause, trying to think clearly. I didn't know if it was active. I didn't know how long it had been there. I didn't know if it was the first one or the latest. I wanted to call 911, but the last dozen attempts had trained me into dread. I called anyway, out of stubbornness. "Ring. Quiet. Breath. Happy New Year," a man whispered. The call dropped. My skin went cold. The unknown number texted immediately, "You see, he doesn't need the police line." Another message followed. "He only needs you to do what you always do. Go home." I forced myself to breathe, then did the only thing that felt remotely like control. I drove to a brightly lit police station parking lot, the kind with cameras and a flagpole and a lobby light that never turns off. I parked under a light and sat there, shaking, holding the tracker between two fingers like it was contaminated. The unknown number texted, "Good. Now don't throw it away here." Another message. "He checks. Dumps. He checks. Trash." I stared at the building, tempted to walk inside, but I didn't even know what I'd say without sounding insane. Someone put a tracker in my gym bag, and every time I call for help I get Happy New Year. Instead, I opened my phone and searched how to disable a tracker tag. Instructions popped up. Remove battery. Place in metal container. Report. Serial. I didn't have tools. I didn't have a container. I had my shaking hands and a storm. I wrapped the tag in layers of foil from a snack wrapper in my car, thin, pathetic, and shoved it into an empty insulated cup, then wedged the cup under the seat. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. When I finally drove home, I took the longest route possible, looping through lit streets, making turns that didn't make sense, watching my mirrors until my eyes ached. At my apartment complex, I didn't park in my usual spot. I parked under the brightest light and sat for a full minute scanning the lot. No dark sit-on, no figure by the shrubs, just rain and quiet. I grabbed my bag and carried it like it was a bomb, walked fast to my building, and checked the hallway before unlocking my door. Inside, I dumped the bag in the bathtub, like I could quarantine it. Then, I noticed something else I hadn't noticed in the car. The zipper pull on the small pocket was turned the wrong way, like someone had closed it in a hurry. My stomach turned. That meant the note and the tag weren't the only message. They were the proof of access. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. "He didn't break in. He didn't need to. You left your bag near you, and the room helped him hide." I sat on my bathroom floor listening to thunder roll, staring at my bag in the tub, realizing the gym had always been the same lesson in different forms. If someone wants to get close, they'll use crowds as cover policy, as delay and your own, routine as the easiest doorway. And the most terrifying part wasn't the tracker itself. It was the handwriting. Neat, calm, confident, like whoever did it already believed my life belonged on a schedule he could edit whenever he wanted. People ask why I switch gyms every January, like it's a quirky habit, like I'm chasing better equipment or cheaper rates. But the truth is, January is when I become easiest to track, and I learned that the hard way. It started as a normal New Year's resolution. Be consistent, show up, build a routine. And I didn't understand that routine is the same word a predator uses when they're building a map. January is crowded. Everyone's new, everyone's filming, everyone's walking around with earbuds and tunnel vision. It's the perfect camouflage for the person who isn't there to work out. The first year it happened, it was small things. Someone staring too long. Someone standing too close by the racks. Someone waiting near my car like he had nowhere else to be. I shrugged it off, because the world teaches you to call that attention, not fret. The second year it got smarter. A spotter offered help I didn't want, and used the word safety like a key to my space. A guy took photos and cropped them so he could deny my face. Someone matched my pace on a treadmill, and suddenly you realize movement doesn't always equal escape. By the third year, I wasn't just being watched. I was being managed, nudged into corners, tested in doorways, forced to choose between silence and a scene. And every time I tried to report it, the response was always the same shape. Did he touch you? Do you have proof? Are you sure? People love asking questions that make fear sound like a hypothesis. That's when I started switching gyms every January. Not because I thought a new building would magically make strangers respectful, but because it bought me time. It broke the pattern. It made it harder for someone to say, "She always comes at 6. She always parks under the third light. She always leaves through the back hall." Switching gyms is a way of disrupting a map, or at least that's what I told myself. This January, the storms were constant. Heavy rain turning the city into reflections. Thunder rolling like a slow warning, and I switched more than ever. I tried chains, local gyms, day passes, anything that didn't require me to become a permanent name in a database. I shortened my profile, used initials, kept my head down, and still the same kinds of things found me. A new member said my name before I introduced myself. A personal trainer used the gym app to message me without permission. A janitor used a mirror taped to a mop handle, like a periscope into the showers. A man blocked an exit door and smiled like he'd invented a new rule. A woman followed me in mirrors and called it concern, turning my fear into a rumor. Then the note in my gym bag happened, and that's when the strategy cracked, because it wasn't about buildings anymore. It was about access. My phone buzzed that night, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen W8Y. I switch gyms every January 1158 p.m. Location. Your pattern is the point. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. "You switch because you think you're erasing yourself." Another message followed. "You're only moving the target." My throat went dry. I sat in my apartment with the storm rattling the windows and tried to list the reasons switching had worked before. New faces, new staff, no history. But then I remembered the welcome email that used my full name when I'd only given an initial. I remembered the screenshot of my profile before I'd even downloaded the app. I remembered the way the hallway camera glitched at the exact moment something mattered. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Switching gyms isn't just about escaping a person. It's about escaping a system that makes it easy for the wrong person to become informed. January is when the system is at its noisiest. Sign-ups, promotions, free training sessions, app downloads, selfies, group classes, referral bonuses, bring a friend. It's a month where everyone is exchanging information because it feels like community. And predators love community because it lowers your guard. They don't need to follow you with a dark sedan if they can follow you through check-ins, camera angles, staff chat tools, and the simple fact that people talk. She's here again, she's new, she keeps switching, she causes problems. In January, gossip spreads faster because everyone is new and hungry for stories. I tried to prove I wasn't paranoid by doing something methodical. I wrote down dates, times, gym names, descriptions. I kept screenshots of weird messages. I kept the note. I kept the tracker tag I'd found taped into my bag. I told myself evidence would help, but evidence is only useful if someone wants to look at it. One night, out of stubbornness, I tried calling 911 again just to see if the line would finally be normal. Ring. Quiet. Breath. "Happy New Year," a man whispered. The call dropped. My skin went cold because it was the same phrase, the same cadence, like a ritual. The unknown number texted immediately calm and pleased. You call for help when you feel alone. He makes sure you feel alone, even on the phone. Another message followed. That's why you switch. You think new walls mean new rules. I stared at my notes and realized the pattern I'd been refusing to name the incidents weren't random. They were escalating in a way that felt coordinated, like a game that resets with each gym but keeps the same player. That's when the last text arrived, the one that made my stomach drop harder than any note or photo ever had. It's not one gym. It's January. You show up to fix yourself. He shows up to claim you. I wanted to delete it, but my thumb wouldn't move. Rain hammered the window, thunder rolled, and I thought about the way gyms sell transformation in January before and after posters, challenge boards, public weigh-ins, progress photos. They encourage you to document yourself, to share your schedule, to be visible. Visibility is the currency of motivation, and it's also the currency of stalking. So yes, I switch gyms every January. I switch because I refuse to become predictable. I switch because I'd rather be inconvenient than comfortable. I switch because I've learned the difference between community and access. But I'm also honest enough to admit the darker truth switching doesn't guarantee safety. It only changes the terrain. The person who wants to watch you doesn't need loyalty to a building. They only need you to believe you're starting over, because the moment you believe that, you stop looking for the ways the old pattern can follow you into the new place. And the most terrifying part of January isn't the crowds. It's the optimism. Because optimism is when you stop guarding the door and someone else steps through like they've been waiting for the new year to give them permission. I didn't believe in the shadow in the mirror until I saw one that didn't match the room, and for the first time I couldn't tell if I was being hunted by a person or by whatever my fear had created to keep me alive. It was the final days of January, heavy rain still drumming on the roof like the month refused to leave, quietly, thunder rolling so low it made the mirrors vibrate faintly. I'd stopped trying new gyms every night because it was exhausting, and exhaustion is when you make mistakes. Instead, I chose one place, a smaller gym, with an older layout, fewer cameras, fewer staff, but fewer crowds too. I told myself I could keep a low profile, get in, get out. No locker room, no showers, no lingering. Just a quick workout and leave. The weight floor was mostly empty, which should have felt safe, but emptiness doesn't soothe you once you've learned that crowds are camouflage and solitude is a trap. I picked a squat rack near the mirror wall, not because I loved watching myself, but because mirrors used to feel like control. You can see behind you, you can see angles, you can see movement. I warmed up, loaded the bar lightly, and started my set. Breathing slow, trying to keep my mind in my body. Rep 1. Rep 2. On Rep 3, I caught something in the mirror behind me, a dark shape passing through the reflection near the doorway, like a person moving quickly. I froze, mid-stand heart jumping. I turned my head. The doorway behind me was empty. No one. The gym's hum continued. A distant treadmill, a fan, the rain on the roof. I told myself it was nothing. My eyes, the flicker of lights, the reflection of a machine. I forced myself to keep going. Rep 4. Rep 5. Again in the mirror, the shadow moved, but this time it didn't move like a person, walking. It slid smooth and fast like a smear across glass, and it stopped directly behind my reflected body, close enough that in the mirror it looked like someone was standing at my back. I felt my skin go cold. I turned fast. Nothing. The air behind me was empty. I stared at the blank space, pulse hammering, and the rational part of my brain tried to build explanations. Light flicker, rain lightning, reflections from cars outside my own movement confusing my eyes. But fear doesn't care about explanations. Fear cares about patterns. My phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen, The Shadow, in the mirror, 0947 p.m. Location, right behind your reflection. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. You see it too. Another message followed. Don't turn around again. Look at the mirror only. My throat went dry. I kept my eyes on the mirror, forcing myself not to whip my head around like a frightened animal. In the reflection, the shadow shape shifted again, and this time it had edges, shoulders, a head shape, the silhouette of someone in a hood. It stood there behind me, perfectly placed, as if it had learned where my body would align in the mirror. My stomach dropped. I could see the outline clearly in the mirror, but when I looked at the actual space behind me, without turning fully, just a slight glance, I saw nothing. It was like the mirror was showing a second reality, layered over this one. Thunder rolled and the lights flickered faintly, and for a second the mirror's surface seemed to ripple like the glass itself was tired. The shadow's head tilted in the reflection, slow, curious. My hands started shaking. I stepped away from the rack, eyes glued to the mirror, and the shadow moved with me, staying behind my reflection like it was attached. I moved left. It moved left. I moved right. It slid right, matching always just behind. It didn't behave like a reflection of me. It behaved like a reflection of something else watching me. I backed toward the front desk, still watching the mirror, and the shadow stayed aligned behind me, even as my angle changed in ways that should have broken the illusion. That's when panic turned sharp, because if it was only lighting, it would break when I moved. If it was only my brain, it would blur. But it stayed consistent. The unknown number texted, "IT likes the glass." Another message. "Mirrors are doors, if you stare long enough." I swallowed hard. "Stop," I whispered, not sure who I was speaking to. The shadow in the mirror lifted an arm in the reflection, slow, deliberate, like it was reaching toward my reflected shoulder. I didn't feel anything on my actual body, but my stomach dropped because my brain couldn't reconcile the two images. A hand almost touching me and empty air behind me. I turned fully violently, because instinct finally overrode the instruction. The gym behind me was still empty. No hooded figure, no movement, just machine's rain hum. When I snapped my gaze back to the mirror, the shadow was gone. My reflection stood alone, pale and shaking. Relief hit so fast it felt like nausea. I exhaled hard, laughing, once involuntary, like my body didn't know what else to do. Then my phone buzzed with a photo message. It was a screenshot of a security camera feed, grainy black and white, showing the squat rack area from a high angle. In the feed, I was visible at the rack, and behind me in the exact spot the mirror had shown there was a person. Hood up, standing still, not blurred, not a light glitch. A person. Under the screenshot one line, "You turned at the wrong time." My throat closed. I stared at the image until my eyes burned. If the feed was real, that meant someone had been behind me while my eyes insisted the room was empty. It meant my quick turns weren't catching them, because they were stepping out of view the moment I moved, using angles, using timing. Or worse, it meant someone else had access to the camera feed and was sending it to me as a threat, whether or not the figure was physically there. Either way, the message was the same. The mirror wasn't lying. It was warning. My hands shook as I grabbed my bag. I walked quickly to the lobby, not running, because running in a quiet gym makes you look like prey. At the front desk, there was no one, just an empty chair, a blinking monitor, a sign that said, "Staff will return shortly." Of course. The storm made everything feel abandoned. I pushed through the front doors into cold rain and headed to my car, scanning reflections in windows, scanning the wet asphalt. In my side mirror as I pulled out, I saw something that made my blood go cold. A hooded figure standing under the awning near the gym doors, head turned toward me, still as a statue. When lightning flashed, the figure didn't move. The shadow wasn't in the mirror anymore. It was outside where mirrors can't help you. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. You love mirrors because they make you think you can see behind you. He loves mirrors because they keep you looking the wrong way. I drove home, shaking rain, pounding thunder, rolling like distant applause, and I couldn't stop replaying the moment the mirror showed me the truth before my eyes could accept it. Sometimes your instincts speak through reflections, because direct sight is too easy to manipulate, and the most terrifying part wasn't the shadow. It was the idea that someone had learned how to stand in the blind spot of my own turning. I used to think the phrase New Year's resolution meant fresh starts, but the most terrifying experience I had at the gym was realizing someone else had made a resolution about me, and they were more consistent than I ever was. It began in the first week of January, when the storm started and didn't stop, the heavy rain turning the parking lot into a wet mirror, thunder rolling low like the city was holding its breath. I joined a gym like everyone else does, hopeful, determined, telling myself I'd build something better. I didn't know I was walking into a month where people like him thrive. Crowds, noise, distractions, everyone filming themselves, everyone too busy becoming new to notice who is watching. The first time I noticed him, I didn't even register him as a threat. He was just a man near the water fountain, hoodie up, hands in pockets, face calm. He looked like 100 other people killing time between sets. But when I moved, he moved. Not always close, not always obvious, just enough that my body started recording him the way it records danger, an imprint of posture, pace, and patience. By the second week, the coincidences stacked. A guy waited by my car in the rain like he was guarding it for me. A phone camera clicked in the wait area. A man stood outside the women's locker room door and smiled like he'd found an interesting exhibit. Every incident by itself could be dismissed by someone who wants to believe gyms are safe. Together they formed a shape, and then the messages started. Not on social media, not on a public platform, in the quiet spaces where a person feels alone. My calendar app creating events, I never made my phone lighting up, with unknown text that knew too much warnings, arriving seconds before something happened, like someone was watching my life, from above, and whispering instructions. At first, I told myself it was a scam, a prank, a glitch, but the messages weren't random. They were specific, timed, and cruelly accurate. Don't fumble your keys. He's counting your hands. Don't roll the window down. Ask him to delete them. He crops so he can deny. It felt like someone was trying to help me survive. That's what kept me hooked. That's what kept me reading. Because the messages came with the illusion of protection. Then the protection began to feel like control. You see, no one answers fast enough. Use the rules inside. You switch because you think you're erasing yourself. The unknown number stopped sounding like a friend and started sounding like a narrator. Calm, pleased, certain. That's when I understood the sick genius of it. The messages didn't just warn me about threats. They trained me. They taught me how to behave. They made fear into a routine. And routines are resolutions. By the last week of January, I had stopped doing normal things. I didn't shower at gyms. I didn't leave through side doors. I didn't park in the same spot twice. I didn't wear the same jacket 2 days in a row. I treated my gym bag like evidence. I held my keys like weapons. I became a person built around avoidance, and I hated that someone else had reshaped my month into a system that revolved around him. The night it snapped into clarity was after I found the tracker tag taped inside my gym bag. I sat in my car, in the storm rain, hammering the windshield, thunder rolling like distant applause, holding that little disc between two fingers, like it was the heart of the whole thing. My phone buzzed. That's not yours. If you take it inside, he knows your door. The advice was useful. Too useful. The voice wasn't guessing. It was instructing. I drove to a police station parking lot, hands shaking, and I sat under a bright camera pole trying to convince myself I still owned my choices. I didn't go inside because I was tired of being asked for proof while my body carried it in tremors. Instead, I did something I hadn't done all month. I turned the lens back. I opened my phone settings and looked for what I'd ignored out of fear. Devices connected unknown permissions, calendar sharing location, access the tiny places where convenience becomes an open door. My calendar was shared with an email address I didn't recognize, hidden under a name that looked like a system account. My stomach dropped. I tapped it. The share history showed it had been added on January 2nd, the day I first signed up at the first gym. Added through a link. A link I hadn't clicked, at least not intentionally. Then I remembered the welcome email I'd opened in the gym lobby, the one with the shiny button that said, "Activate your membership app." I remembered clicking it, because everyone clicks it. I remembered my phone asking for permissions, calendar notifications, and me tapping allow because it's January and you're trying to be a better person and you don't want friction. My throat tightened. The unknown number texted immediately, as if it sensed my attention shifting. Don't waste time in settings. Go home. That was the first time the messages tried to stop me from looking. The first time the help became a demand. My hands shook as I removed the calendar share. I revoked permissions. I changed passwords. I turned off notifications. The phone went quiet for a full minute, and the silence felt like stepping out of a loud room into snow. Then the screen lit up again. A new text arrived from the unknown number, no longer calm. Why are you taking away my reminders? My skin went cold, because that sentence contained the truth, the events, the warnings, the so-called help. Those were reminders, but not for me. They were for him. A schedule he could watch unfold. A way to see when I moved, when I panicked, when I complied. I tried calling 911 again, not because I believed it would work, but because I needed to hear if the ritual phrase would appear. Rain, quiet, breath. Happy New Year, the man whispered. The call dropped. My stomach turned. I stared at my phone and realized the phrase wasn't magic. It was a signature, a taunt, a way of saying I'm on the line you think is yours. I drove home anyway, rain blurring the streetlights, thunder rolling, and I didn't go to my apartment immediately. I parked 2 blocks away under a street lamp and watched my building entrance like I was staking out my own life. 10 minutes passed. Then I saw him, not a shadow in a mirror. A man in a hoodie walking slowly past my building, not entering, not rushing, just scanning, patient. He stopped near the lobby door and looked up at the security camera like he knew exactly where it was. Then he smiled not at anyone else, at the camera, at the idea of being seen. My phone buzzed with one last text, the calm voice returning like it wanted to end the story nicely. You did good this month. You learned fast. My hands shook as I typed back for the first time, all genuine. Who are you? The response came immediately. The person who made you pay attention. My throat tightened. I typed again. Why me? The reply arrived slower this time, like it enjoyed making me wait because you showed up in January, because you wanted to change, because you clicked aloud. My skin went cold. I stared at the man outside my building and realized the most terrifying truth of the month. He didn't need brute force. He used my own optimism as the entry point. The gym's welcome system, the app's permissions, the culture of sharing and tracking and documenting, he turned it all into a stalking tool. And he wasn't alone. He was counting on the world to call it coincidence, misunderstanding, overreaction. I didn't go back to any gym in February. I didn't tell myself I was quitting. I told myself I was reclaiming choice. I reported the calendar share, changed every password, replaced my phone number, and warned every friend I had about clicking allow on anything they didn't understand. The last message I ever received from that unknown number came on February 1st, at midnight, like a final ritual. It said, Happy New Year, and for the first time the words didn't feel like a whisper from a closet. They felt like a confession. The horror wasn't supernatural. It was human efficient and built into the way we celebrate fresh starts, by opening doors we don't even realize exist.